Everybody stand by.
Good morning. I call to order the quarterly commission meeting of the Fish and Wildlife Commission, May 25, 2023. I want to remind everybody before we get going to please silence your telephones. If you have to make a call, please leave the room. But I want to welcome everybody this morning to our meeting. The invocation this morning is going to be brought to us by Commissioner Ralph Swallows and the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Josh Lillard. After that, we'll have some remarks and get into the business of the day. So, Ralph Swallows, let's all stand, please.
Father, we're grateful for the day. Thank you for a new day that we get to go about our business and all be here. I pray, Father, that you would give us wisdom and discernment in the business we discuss, these important matters about your creation. We are thankful for what you created for us, and we give you praise, we give you honor, and we give you glory for that. I pray you guide each of us as we follow through these business items today, and we do the right things, and we follow your will in all that we do. We're just grateful and ask all this in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
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 Josh?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. You may be seated. I want to make a few remarks before we ask the commissioner to speak and then take the roll. First thing I want to do is welcome back Commissioner Storm from his major surgery. I think he is about fully recovered, and we're glad to have him back. I'm sure he's glad to be back with us. He worked as remotely as he could, or did as much work remotely as he could, but we're glad to have him back in the building. So welcome back, Commissioner. I also want to introduce to you this morning, we're excited to bring to you the 4th District new appointee to the Commission, Greg Cecil. He's kind enough to be with us today. Mr. Cecil lives in Munfordville. He is the principal of Hart County High School, and unfortunately today is the last day of school. So, bless you. So poor Greg has been probably up for the last 3 or 4 days getting ready for graduation of 160, I think, or about that, seniors this year, and his obligation to the school, of course, comes first, and he has been there since 5 or 6 o'clock this morning getting ready for that. So, Mr. Cecil, we appreciate you being here with us today, and hate that you had to do it remotely, but we certainly understand your obligation to those students, and we're glad to have you here with us today. So, as has been our tradition, I'm going to give you a few minutes to kind of introduce yourself, if you would, tell a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get started with the commissioner's remarks. So go ahead, Mr. Cecil. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, and thank you for your condolences on last day of school. It's been an enjoyable morning so far. My seniors camped out in the parking lot and redecorated my school for me this morning, so we've been working on that. I just want to introduce myself for just a minute. I'm a graduate of Western Kentucky University. I have degrees in general science with a minor in biology. I've been in the education field for 27 years. I've been a high school administrator for 21 of those years. Been an avid outdoorsman all my life, mostly hunting. My favorite is probably waterfowl, and I'm just honored to represent the 4th District.
Yeah. Well, we're glad to have you, and I think you'll find, as many of the commissioners, I think, have already contacted you, Mr. Cecil. They stand ready to help you any way that we can to get you up to speed. There's a lot to digest, but I know you've already been working on that. You told me on the phone that you had already been going over stuff and learning, and I think you came here for a day of training, so we'll assist you any way that we can to help you get going and answer any questions that you have. So we hope you do well with your last day of school today, and we look forward to seeing you here in physical presence and at the June meeting, sir. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here this morning. I want to remind everybody that we have 3 by remote this morning, 3 of the commissioners, and at any time, if they have to leave, we'll announce that they are going to leave. Of course, if they leave, they cannot come back into the meeting, but they may need to leave for those reasons that we've already discussed. If we have an interruption in the transmission, we'll wait to get them back on if they're staying with us. So once they go off because they have other duties they have to perform, they will not be coming back onto the meeting, and we'll just announce that at the time. I also want to explain a little bit about today's agenda. One of the commissioners asked me if I would mention the fact that some of the things that we had originally scheduled to talk about were not on today's agenda, and he got a few calls about it. The other issues, especially those that had to do with fisheries, will be discussed at the next meeting. We had so many things on the agenda that it was going to be a very long day, probably 3 or 4 o'clock. So we've divided it into 2 meetings, and tentatively we have the second meeting set for, I believe it's June 16th. Is that right, Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
June 16th, we have the other half of what we were going to discuss today. So some of the comments from the public that we had concerning those portions of the agenda will be read at the next meeting. So if you sent something in about some of the aquatic issues we had, they'll be read at the next meeting if it is pertinent to that part of the agenda. That pretty much sums up what I wanted to explain about why we have divided this meeting into two different parts. So, Commissioner, welcome back again, and you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will start out with thanking Greg Cecil for the day at Hart County High School. I enjoyed my time and my time with the students. I will say to everybody here something that he probably wouldn't share with you. He's the kind of principal that I would like to have, and I'm experienced in going to the principal's office, and I got to spend some time with him, and he commands respect in that school, and people appreciate him, and I can see just a lot of love in that school, a lot of mutual respect, and so I really do appreciate that time that we got to spend together, and I look forward to working with you here at Kentucky Fish and Wildlife. Also to Jerry, I got to spend some time with Jerry at Will Green Lake and had some fellowship with him, and I really do appreciate that, and it meant a whole lot to me to get to spend that time with you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
There's a lot of news, so typically I try to do this in 60 seconds or less, but for the sake of time. But we got several things to go over, so division-wide, I'm going to go through these, each division. But Nathan, if you would pull up the service awards for me. And Shane, I may ask you for a little bit of background on these service awards. These fine gentlemen, they're being recognized. Most of you know Jason Estes. He received the Commissioner's Award. And Shane, could you fill the commission in with why he received the Commissioner's Award?
Absolutely. So he was on patrol. So Officer Estes was on patrol in Pitman Creek, Lake Cumberland, this past summer, and came upon a PWC that looked to be abandoned, and upon closer inspection realized they had been involved in an accident. He, along with a bystander, were able to get the victim out of the water and perform life-saving maneuvers on until EMS arrived. So very, very proud of Officer Estes and his accomplishment that day, his dedication.
Well, a friendly officer that I always look forward to see out there in the field, and it was an honor to share that with him. And our next award is the Emeritus Award, and 2 more friendly faces, guys that do great work for the agency, and I'll have Shane because he can give more details.
Sure. These 2 officers responded to the flood, the horrible flood we had last year in East Kentucky, and were instrumental in saving a woman from a house that was filling with water quickly. They worked in conjunction with Lexington Fire Department and were able to get her out of the house safely.
And then the last 2 awards, the Bravery Award, 2 more faces I love to see when I get out in the field, and we're happy these guys received the award.
Yeah, 2 more great officers in that area that also flood related were able to go in and save several people, the initial responders that day to the flood. So saved a lot of people quick on scene that day. A lot of our local officers were first on scene up there during that flood. So we're really proud of them, proud they were close and able to show up and assist.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
So many of you know we had our fallen officer memorial on Monday. Great leadership by the majors. The event went great. Actually, in my opinion, it's the best one we've had since I've been here. The weather was fantastic. We followed that up with employee awards over on the Franklin County, Lawrenceburg, kind of on Anderson County line. That also went well. We had a great speaker with great fellowship, and just an honor to get to serve with these folks. But the majors are doing great work. But I want to tell you something that stood out to me on Monday. I walked down the sidewalk, and there's several officers that I noticed that they were here, but they weren't right in the middle of these things. They were setting up tents, and they were working their tails off, and they made it look like it was easy. But I saw Greg Watson. He looked like he'd been sprayed with water hose. He was just back there shining, and he may not think I noticed or many others noticed, but these guys just put on a great show. I want to thank all the officers for helping us set that up, because it's a big deal. Also, Doug Morgan, I want to thank you for your idea to have us explore some additional training options in the Northeast, and the majors will be coming out to see you pretty soon for that. But these guys have provided some great leadership, and we're really appreciative of our two majors. The Wildlife Division's not here today, and we had a previous conflict, and Ben Robinson's out there doing good work, and he's bringing these people together, and there's a lot of cool things to talk about. I'm not going to steal thunder from people today. We're going to talk about this more complex, but the bush honeysuckle removal project at KDFWR is a big deal. It's absolutely a big deal, and if you haven't seen it, you got to get out there. We're going to have foresters from all over the country that are looking at what we did and how we do it, and so these people wanted to take a chance, and they hit the nail on the head, and so I can't brag on them enough. Turkey season was a success, and I think Zach Danks deserves to talk about that more thoroughly. We had a good season. We had a lot of jakes last year, and we knew this year we'd have a lot of 2-year-old birds, and I want to thank each one of you all on the commission for taking people turkey hunting. I enjoyed the stories, and some of you struck out yourself, but it sounds like the people you took did pretty well. But it's good stuff, and we're thankful for Zach and his team and the Wildlife Division, their work. The Elk and Outdoor Fest, I'm going to give this to marketing, but all these are team efforts. The Outdoor Fest, it was a fest. I mean, it was a festival. There were a lot of people there. A lot of smiling faces, a lot of good things going on. There were several thousand tickets sold, and a lot of good fellowship. And that same day, the NASP national tournament was going on in Louisville. There were 1,700 kids there shooting from 49 states, and Tommy Floyd just knocks it out of the park. And as I always say, Tommy Floyd's a real deal. Admin, Lisa and that division. I got 2 Lisas here in the room. I gotta always remember that. But they have big shoes right now to fill, and I'm really thankful for what they're doing. They've got things that they never dreamed of that they're taking care of, and they're just knocking it out of the park. And so they just wrapped up the most extensive audit that we've ever had here within this agency, and they worked their tails off, got a clean audit. We're happy. Lisa, she can fill you in more on that, but they just keep doing a good job. Also want to thank you for your budget and your planning. We look at current budget, we look at the 2-year projections. We talked yesterday 5 and 10-year projections, and she's always very helpful in her team. So just a big shout out to them. The I&E division actually had to try to condense this. The big news, Kevin, if you'd stand up. Kevin Kelly is our new I&E director, and Kevin has been an advocate for this agency since I've known him. He was willing to take a chance on us, and we're willing to take a chance on him. We're excited to see what he can do, and I've got a vision to make that the central information hub. And I think he's ready for a big challenge. He's got camps around the corner, and he's still helping us with public information, but that'll segue into Lisa Jackson, who's here. Lisa, if you'd stand up. She's here. She's worked in state government for many years, and so she's going to be in Kevin's previous role, and she's going to knock it out of the park. And as you can see, she's a smiling face, and she's going to be a good advocate for the agency. And this one doesn't surprise me, the next piece, but Emily Hogue, Assistant Director in I&E, she qualified for the Boston Marathon. And I used to run, believe it or not, prior to this surgery and years back. That's a big deal to qualify for the Boston Marathon. So she's a mother, she's a wife, she's a full-time employee here, and she's qualifying for Boston Marathon. So I'm really impressed with that. So I hope you can congratulate her if you see her. Nathan Sangster, the superstar video producer and helping us these commission meetings. Nathan, he just did the best job producing that memorial video the other day. Really appreciate him. So a lot of big things going on in the I&E division, and you all just wait. We've got some good plans in the works. Fisheries and engineering both, we're looking at boat ramps. We're looking at pouring concrete and parking lots. And so it's peak season, and Michael Scott and his team got a lot of good things going on. And I got to spend some time on Lake Linville the other day and catch some crappie, and I just had a blast doing that. So get out there and in the woods or on the water, whatever suits you. And don't forget about our fishing forecast. That's a good tool and a good resource to tell you where the fish are biting. And wanted to mention, we had our memorial the other day, and hours later there was an officer that lost his life in line of duty in Scott County. And so I would encourage you to pray for that family and that community. And also we got some commission members that need special prayers, and they didn't ask me to bring those up specifically, but if you would, let's be praying for those people because they're going through some difficult times. And that's about it, but we're moving the needle here, and we're thankful for a lot of our agency leaders and a lot of the people that are out there making things happen. Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Storm. I think it goes without saying, on behalf of the commission, we congratulate all those who were recognized and all the good work the agency's doing and all the different divisions, and keep up that good work, and we're proud of all of them, including all the officers who were mentioned today in their awards. So thank you for that great update and all the good news and the turkey information. So thank you for being back and for bringing us all those updates and all that good news. Prior to beginning our action items today, I'm going to ask the Secretary to take the roll, please.
Commissioner Floyd?
Here.
Commissioner Fisher?
Present.
Commissioner Swallows?
Here.
Commissioner Cecil? Commissioner Cecil?
Here.
Here by Zoom. Commissioner Lillard?
Here.
Commissioner Farrell? Commissioner Farrell?
Here by Zoom.
Okay.
Commissioner Horn?
Here.
Commissioner Horn here by Zoom. I'm here. The chairman, Mr.
Here.
Chairman?
I am here. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The first action item that we'll address today is the minutes from the March 29th meeting. You all should have that attachment A1 on page 4 of your handouts. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from the March 29th meeting?
Yes, Chairman Kleiner.
Go ahead, sir.
Under the action item for number of elk permits, there is no mention of having the elk permits, special elk permits as non-zone specific. We discussed that multiple times, and I think this should be amended for the June 16th meeting to reflect that point. And I know we can go back and look at the videos and minutes and see that. There's no mention of that here in the minutes.
So you want to amend that to say that should be in part of our discussion next time?
Well, this is an action item for the next time, June 16th.
An action item for the next time?
Yeah, June 16th meeting.
So you're saying you want the zones removed
Yes.
from those special commission
Yes,
permits?
we discussed that multiple times, and the elk permits for the next award or the next season would be non-zone specific. We heard from several constituents on that. We had several discussions about it, so I would request that we make that clear.
If there are no objections from commission members, then we'll add that to the minutes, or that correction to the minutes. Are there any objection to that? Anyone? Then, if I hear no objections, then we'll just add that correction to the minutes and deal with that as an action item next time.
Thank you.
Are there any other corrections or additions to the minutes from the last meeting, or March 29th meeting? If there are none, then I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as written and corrected, as corrected.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written with Ralph's amendment.
Additions. So we have a motion to accept them with the additions of Ralph's comments. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Josh Lillard. Any further discussion? Mr. Secretary, would you take the roll call?
Commissioner Floyd? Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Swallows?
Aye.
Commissioner Cecil?
Aye.
Commissioner Cecil, aye by Zoom. Commissioner Lillard?
Aye.
Commissioner Farrell?
Aye.
Commissioner Farrell, aye by Zoom. Commissioner Horn?
Aye.
Commissioner Horn, present by Zoom. I'm here, Mr. Chairman.
Don't need to vote unless I need to break a tie. So
Okay, then.
then the motion carries unanimously to accept the minutes with the corrections from Mr. Swallows. The next item on action items is the quarterly financial reports from Lisa Cox. That should be attachment A2, page 5 through 8, gentlemen. Ms. Cox, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Did you bring up those?
Can we take a brief recess? Carl?
I'm sorry,
Mr. Chairman.
Can we take a brief recess?
a brief recess. Is there any objections from any commission member about taking a brief recess?
Mr. Chairman, I believe it's regarding the video feed, just clarifying a point regarding the video feed, is that right, Steve?
Yes, just trying to figure out how to get Lisa's information on the screen while
Display.
keeping the video feed playing.
Okay.
We can't lose connection with the 3.0 remote.
Okay. If there are no objections, let's take a 5-minute recess to see if we can get that corrected. Okay? Take a 5-minute recess and we'll reconvene. Yes, I'm ready.
Lisa's
Everybody's
ready, she's always ready.
You're right.
Give a thumbs up so they see you there.
Everybody good?
All right.
Okay. We'll resume the meeting. I think we have the electronic problem rectified, so Lisa, if you want to continue with your quarterly financial report, you have the floor, ma'am.
All right, the first page is your income statement. It has October, November, and December, which is the second fiscal quarter of the year. In June, we will have the third quarter through March. And all of the numbers are pretty much in line with the previous year. If y'all have any questions, I'll be happy to go over it. Same thing is true of the other two reports. One of them compares among the fiscal years, and the last report is your cash report.
Lisa, do you have any concerns about anything in that report that bothers you or disturbs you?
No, I do not. You know, there have been a little bit of changes really as far as how payroll was processed, and surprisingly the numbers are still very close. So I feel good about where it is.
Okay. Commission have any questions for Lisa? I know you've had a chance to review these prior to today, but are there any questions about anything you saw here that you have for Lisa?
I have one. So on the fiscal year 23 compared to the prior 2 years, like our license sales are down by $1.5 million. Do you know where that's related to? Specific user group or?
No, I do not. I mean, I would have to look at the individual licenses. So all of our license fees, whether it be for fishing or hunting or sportsmen, are all in one revenue code. So I have to go outside of the accounting system to look at that. And I don't know I know Brian stays up pretty much on the different licenses, but I don't know which group that affected.
Might add, generally speaking, the COVID bump probably had something to do with those numbers.
I was starting to say all of our numbers have been up during COVID. We were one of the fortunate state agencies that COVID actually helped our revenue.
Other questions for Lisa?
Chairman, may I add real quickly, that is a nationwide phenomenon. So we, in addition to the COVID bump in 2020 and a little bit in 2021, all states are seeing a kind of a normalization back down, where outdoor participation is resuming back to where it was in 2019 and previously.
Thank you. Any further questions? I'll entertain a motion concerning the financial report.
I move we accept the report.
I have a motion from Commissioner Swallows that we accept the report as written. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
I have a second from Commissioner Lillard. Is there any further discussion concerning the financial report? That being said, Mr. Secretary, if you take the roll, please.
Commissioner Floyd?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher? Aye. Commissioner Swallows?
Aye.
Commissioner Cecil?
Aye, by Zoom.
Commissioner Lillard?
Aye.
Commissioner Farrell? Commissioner Farrell?
Can't hear you, Jerry. You need to flip your switch back on.
Commissioner Farrell?
He's still muted.
Hold your hand up.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
We heard you then.
Commissioner Horn?
Aye.
I vote aye.
Motion carries unanimously then. Thank you, gentlemen. The next item for action item is change Simpson County from Zone 3 to Zone 2 for deer hunting. Thank you, Lisa. Brian Clark, I believe you're going to present that, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm pinch hitting for Ben Robinson, the Wildlife Director, and good morning, everyone.
That should be attachment A3, page 9.
This is probably the briefest you'll hear me present something to this table, so you all can breathe a sigh of relief. We only received positive feedback from staff and stakeholders regarding this recommendation or proposal, and so it coming before you as an action item, we have had very limited discussion just because we didn't have any controversy. So I would ask that you move Simpson County in regulation to a Zone 1 county. Excuse me, Zone 2 county.
I was going to say, I believe it's Zone 2, from Zone 3 to Zone 2. I know you gentlemen have read the attachment. Are there any questions about that or what that entails with anybody for Commissioner Clark?
I make the motion to move it from Zone 3 to Zone 2.
Then we have a motion from Brian Fisher to accept the Wildlife Division recommendation to rezone Simpson County from Zone 3 to Zone 2. Is there a second to that motion? Josh Lillard seconds that motion. Is there any further discussion about moving Simpson County from a Zone 3 to a Zone 2?
I think that it's awesome that we're able to do that. I mean, the population is getting better in that area, and hopefully we can do that in a lot of places.
That's a good sign, isn't it? Okay. If there's no further discussion, Mr. Secretary, would you take the roll concerning that?
Commissioner Floyd?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Swallows?
Aye.
Commissioner Cecil?
Aye by Zoom.
Commissioner Lillard?
Aye.
Commissioner Farrell?
Aye by Zoom.
Commissioner Horn?
Aye.
By Zoom. I vote aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. The next is update and clarify prohibited aquatic species regulations with Dave Dreves from Fisheries. Mr. Dreves, you have the floor, sir.
Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Morning. By the way, that's attachment A4, page 10 and 11 in your packet. Page 10 and 11.
And just please let me know what kind of detail you want me to get into on these action items, Mr. Chairman. But this is 301 KAR 1122. It's updating the importation, possession, and prohibited aquatic species regulation. And there's a number of provisions in this regulation, as we've discussed previously. They are to clarify that goldfish may be used as bait. Individuals of any aquatic species may be released at the time of catch back into the water body from which they were caught. Restrict the transportation and sale of live tilapia within Kentucky to another properly licensed propagator, a properly licensed live fish and bait dealer, or a person, corporation, or business entity selling fish for food in establishments for resale. And that's basically because we want tilapia to be propagated only for food consumption. We don't want to allow them to be propagated for other uses. And that's just to prevent tilapia from being introduced into our public waters. And the last provision, or last two, is to explicitly prohibit the possession of live Asian carp. The reg already has that you can't buy, sell, import, transport, or release, but it doesn't say that you can't possess them. So we really just want to cover all of our bases on that one. Allow sport fishing anglers to possess, transport, and sell invasive carp under the same three conditions we allow for licensed commercial fishermen. So we allowed the sport fishing anglers, like bow fishermen, to be able to sell invasive carp, but we didn't make this provision in here kind of as an oversight. So now this would have the provision in there that they can possess, transport, and sell them under these same three conditions in this regulation.
Okay. I might point out for the commission and for those who are looking at these printouts, all that in blue are the changes that you all are requesting being made. The rest in black are explanations of the existing law or explanations of why the change is needed.
Yes, sir.
So what is in blue are the changes that you all would like to make on both page 10 and 11, just for clarity's situation. So the things that are being changed are the ones that are in blue.
Happy to explain any of those details if you need more.
The definition of tilapia is a little questionable. There's more than one.
There's many
fish that can be considered tilapia.
Yes, sir. And so it's hard to keep your arms around it, but we want to make sure that there's only a few that are really commercially propagated for food, but there are a whole host of tilapia species. So anyway, this just allows us, and in a way, we've been already telling folks that we would allow tilapia for food consumption, but this would codify it in regulation.
Okay. Other questions about those changes that they request to make and clarifications that they like to do?
I've got one.
Go ahead, sir.
Where you can release an aquatic species back into the water right after it was caught. So if I'm fishing Kentucky Lake and I foul hook Asian carp, previously,
Technically, previously, the way the regulation read, you weren't supposed to be able to release it.
Right. So now,
and the regulation said you can't release these species into public waters, and it means you can't take them out of your truck and release them. It doesn't mean you can't catch it and let it go, and so we just wanted to clarify that.
Obviously, we don't want people throwing a 40-pound Asian carp out right next to where other people are fishing because they think we can't. They release it.
Right.
They just need to be able to put it right back in the water.
Yeah, they can.
I'm very supportive of that. Thank you.
Any other questions? A good question, Robin.
Yeah.
Any other questions concerning that?
Okay with me.
Then, gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion concerning what is written on page 10 and 11, or as it's written there, concerning updating, clarifying prohibited aquatic species regulations.
I'll make the motion that we approve these action items on pages 10 and 11 as written.
As written. Do we have a second to that? Robin seconds that motion, so I have a motion from Ralph Swallows that we accept as written the request from Fisheries Division on page 10 and 11 as it is written, and we have a second by Robin Floyd. Is there any further discussion about that item? Mr. Secretary, would you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Floyd.
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher.
Aye.
Commissioner Swallows.
Aye.
Commissioner Cecil.
Aye by Zoom.
Commissioner Lillard.
Aye.
Commissioner Farrell.
Aye, by Zoom.
Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
Aye by Zoom. I'm present at the 8th, Mr. Chairman.
So the motion carries unanimously. I can't pass the opportunity to brag on the commission for their review of all these things prior to the meeting. That makes things flow a lot faster and a lot smoother. They've reviewed these and already have questions prepared, so I brag on them for doing their homework prior to the meeting. The next action item is to clarify the propagation of aquatic organism permits requirements. That's attachment A5 and page 12. A5, page 12. Mr. Dreves?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. This is 301 KAR 115, and this proposal is to provide that the department may deny a propagation permit for aquatic organisms that are determined to be potentially damaging to native ecosystems. And this provision right now is currently not specified in there, although we have statutory authority to make sure that we don't allow potentially damaging introductions through the propagation permit or through the transportation permit, which is the next regulation. So we could probably talk about these two action items in tandem, because A5 is the propagation of aquatic organisms, and attachment A6 is 301 KAR 125. It's the transportation of fish. And see, these are kind of mirror proposals, sorry. And this transportation of fish regulation, we would want to provide that the department may deny a transportation permit for the transportation organisms that are determined to be potentially damaging to native ecosystems.
That's page 13, John.
And so by approving these two proposals, when we deny a permit, it also would allow them, the language would be in there to allow them to appeal through the administrative hearing process, which that language is not currently in there either. And so we have the authority statutorily with 150.280 to do this, and we want to codify it in administrative regulation and also give folks that disagree with our decision to be able to appeal.
So both of these requests are clarifying and just cleaning up some of the language in there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any questions about either one, both attachment A5 and A6, if you all wish to take those as one motion on page 12 and 13? Any other questions for him? Again, I know you all have reviewed these things, so that helps you with it. So I'll entertain a motion concerning page 12 and page 13, the request from Fisheries Division to clarify propagation of aquatic organism permit requirements and to clarify transportation of fish permit requirements.
Make a motion.
Make a motion that we accept both of those requests, both on page 12 and both page 13 as they're written, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I have a motion to accept both those on page 12 and 13 as they are written, the request from Fisheries. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Josh Lillard seconds that motion. Is there any further discussion about the request from Fisheries concerning page 12 and 13 as written? I should turn around and see the other commissioners. Any questions for you all, gentlemen? Everybody's okay with that? If so, Mr. Secretary, would you take a roll call vote on both of those issues, please, sir?
Commissioner Floyd?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Swallows?
Aye.
Commissioner Cecil?
Aye by Zoom.
Commissioner Lillard?
Aye.
Commissioner Farrell?
Aye by Zoom.
Commissioner Horn?
Aye.
By Zoom. I vote aye. It'd be 8.
Thank you. Then both of those requests passed unanimously through the commission. Mr. Dreves, the next is define gill net and trammel net in regulation.
Yes, sir. This is Regulation 301 KAR 146. We've been asked by the Law Enforcement Division that it would be helpful if these two commercial gears were defined in regulation. So this will just simply add definitions for gill net and trammel net. And these definitions were taken out of a American Fisheries Society fisheries publication, basically. And so we're just asking for these to be defined in reg to help the Law Enforcement Division when these issues might come up in court.
Do you care to read both of those definitions for the public to be able to hear what both of those are?
So a gill net means a passive capture device in which fishes are captured by becoming wedged, gilled, or entangled in a single panel of webbing fished vertically. A trammel net means a passive capture device in which fishes are captured by becoming wedged, gilled, or entangled in 2 or 3 panels of webbing fished vertically.
Thank you. Commission members, do you have any questions about gill net and trammel net definitions for Mr. Dreves or for law enforcement in the problem that they've had with that in the past? Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to know from law enforcement what the issues are, but I'm assuming that we've already got it in regs that gill net and trammel net are defined in a certain reg, and we're just putting definitions to.
They're not defined in reg. They mention gill net and trammel net.
Mentioned in there.
Yes, sir.
We're just putting the definition to them.
Yes, sir. They're mentioned in regulation in our commercial gear regs and the other commercial, fishing related regulations. And this just would specify what a gill net is and what a trammel net is. And some of our law enforcement officers out in the Western District, where commercial fishing is quite popular, had asked for this change.
Are they experiencing any issues where there might be something used that's not in compliance with the 2 definitions listed?
I don't think so. I don't think it's an issue with non-compliance. It's just an issue distinguishing between the 2 types of nets and the multiple panels is what they're running to. And it'll help both our enforcement and our commercial fishermen know when the regulation speaks to these 2 devices exactly which one they're allowed to use.
Okay.
It just clarifies it. It clarifies it for us.
Thank you, Major.
For all of us.
Thank you, Major. Thank you, Mr. Dreves. Any further questions for either one of those gentlemen concerning the definition of gill net and trammel net on page 14? Then I'll entertain a motion concerning that issue.
I'll make a motion to accept it as written.
Josh Lillard has requested by his motion that we accept as written what's on page 14, the request from Fisheries. Is there a second to that? We have a second from Mr. Fisher concerning that. Is there any further discussion about that item on the action items? If there's no further did you want to say something? You have something, Jenny?
Yes, may I?
Yes, go ahead.
You all just approved a fisheries definition regulation. So I just think we also need to clarify that by defining these, that would need to go in the definition reg that we've worked on based on your past vote for that regulation. So the chapter of fish, all fish regulations now has a definitions regulation itself. So I know we've listed 146 here, but I think it's important to clarify for the public to know that that would go in the definition reg as it pertains to the commercial fishing gear regulation. Does that make sense?
Yes. Does anybody have any question about that?
No, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
I apologize. I should have mentioned that Jenny's correct that we have a definitions reg that's now KAR 001, right?
Yes.
001.
Okay.
It's a new definitions reg that will be. It's not effective yet, or it will be effective soon.
It will be effective in the next few months.
And so when this is filed, it will go in that reg. It won't go in 146.
Okay, good. Thank you for that clarification, Jenny. I knew you wanted to say something, but, okay. Is there any further discussion about that clarifying where that will be filed? Then go ahead with your roll call vote, Mr. Secretary.
Commissioner Floyd? Aye. Commissioner Fisher? Aye. Commissioner Swallows? Aye. Commissioner Cecil?
Aye by Zoom.
Commissioner Lillard? Aye. Commissioner Farrell?
Aye by Zoom.
Commissioner Horn?
Aye.
By Zoom, and I vote aye. 8, Mr. Chairman.
Good. Then the motion carries unanimously. Mr. Cecil, are you hanging in there? Are you still okay?
I've got to go right now, actually.
Okay, so.
Thank you all.
Okay, we appreciate you being here this morning. You about got through all the action items. Thank you for your presence this morning. We look forward to seeing you in June. And if you dismiss yourself now, of course, you will not be back on today. But we appreciate you being here with us and your introduction. We're glad to have you, sir.
I understand. Thank you all.
Thank you. So let the record. Okay, good. Thank you. So let the record show that Mr. Cecil has to cease and take on his duties there at the high school and will not be back with us for the rest of the meeting. The next item, action item, is establish special regulations for walleye and smallmouth bass on Barren River and add special regulations for catfish at Yatesville Lake. That's page 15, attachment A8. Mr. Dreves, you have the floor.
So both of these proposals are in 301 KAR 1201. That's the taking of fish by traditional fishing methods regulations, where we have all our creel and size limits. And so this first item is actually a clarification in the regulation in terms of we have special regulations for walleye and smallmouth on the Barren River already, but we used one of the defining limits of the regulation was the Barren River Lock and Dam 1, which has been deauthorized and removed. And so we needed to establish a new boundary. So the proposal is to provide that the new lower boundary on the Barren River for walleye and smallmouth bass special regulations shall be the mouth of the Barren River. And the next item in this same regulation is to propose that blue catfish and channel catfish will have a 15 fish daily limit in aggregate, and only one fish may be longer than 25 inches. And that's kind of standard language in regulation where we stock blue catfish in reservoirs. And so we recently added Yatesville Lake to the lakes that we stock with blue catfish, and so we wanted to apply similar regulations on Yatesville as where we have the other blue catfish stockings.
So again, those items marked in blue are the changes. So for Yatesville, blue and channel cats will have a 15 fish daily limit in aggregate, and only one fish may be longer than 25 inches. That's for Yatesville. That's the addition for Yatesville. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And that proposal, the special regulation for walleye that already exists is an 18 to 26 inch protective slot limit with 2 fish daily creel. And the special regulation for smallmouth bass is a 15 inch minimum size limit for all of the main stem and tributaries above the boundary. And so by moving the lower boundary downstream from where Barren River Lock and Dam 1 was, if we move it down to the mouth of the Barren River, then it also encompasses a notable tributary, which is the Gasper River, So the Gasper River would be under those special regulations for walleye and smallmouth as well. So basically, from the mouth of Barren River and everything upstream will now include be under these special regulations.
Okay. Questions from commission members concerning both the proposal for clarification and for the addition of Yatesville Lake, those catfish issues for Yatesville? Mr. Swallows, you don't have any questions about that?
No, I think it's a great idea.
You and Mr. Lillard are fishing reps, so you all are both happy with those proposals?
Yes, I think the 15-inch minimum size limit and those things are good.
Well, then, if there's no further questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion concerning those changes that Fisheries like to make on page 15.
Well, I make the motion that we approve as stated on page 15.
As it is changed and written.
As written.
And a second from Commissioner Fisher. Is there any further discussion about those changes Fisheries request? Mr. Secretary?
I'd love to.
Do your duty.
Commissioner Floyd? Aye. Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Swallows?
Aye.
Commissioner Lillard?
Aye.
Commissioner Farrell?
Aye.
By Zoom?
Zoom.
Commissioner Horn?
Aye.
By Zoom. I vote aye. It'd be 7, Mr. Chairman.
7 unanimous votes, then that motion also carries. The final item for action today is add special regulations for hand grabbing of catfish at Yatesville Lake. That's page 16 of your handout, attachment A9, gentlemen.
This regulation is 301 KAR, excuse me, 1410, taking fish by non-traditional fishing methods. The non-traditional fishing methods are things like hand grabbing, bow fishing, those kind of things, limb lines. So anyway, Yatesville Lake, kind of a partner proposal to the previous one in terms of we're stocking blue catfish in Yatesville Lake now. The places where we stock blue catfish, we also have these non-traditional fishing regulations where we put a special limit on hand grabbing. And so this proposal would have catfish will have a 5 fish daily creel limit in aggregate, and only one blue catfish or channel catfish may be longer than 25 inches, and that is for hand grabbing.
I have a
question?
Point of clarification. So if I catch a fish with my hands, that's considered non-traditional, but if I use a $5,000 live scope to catch a fish, that's considered traditional.
Yes, sir. Because you're using a rod and reel.
Well, we are a government organization. Okay, thank you.
Well, if you have one of those live scopes, a $5,000 live scope, and you don't like to use it because of that, I'll be glad to accept that as a donation in the event that you want to get rid of your live scope at $5,000.
I'm a traditional guy.
Go ahead, Mr. Fisher.
Do we have the hand grabbing limit on every lake that we currently stock?
The lakes where we're stocking blue catfish, I believe we do have the hand grabbing limit already in place. So this would be since we added this one, this is just bringing it up to date. Since we had a blue catfish stocking in Yatesville.
Are we stocking blue catfish at Cave Run?
No, I don't believe we're stocking blue catfish at Cave Run.
Just checking.
Any further questions from him or comments about that regulation or that request on page 16? Entertain a motion concerning how we're going to handle that, gentlemen.
I'll make a motion that we accept as written.
I have a motion from Mr. Lillard that we accept what is written on page 16 as it is written. Is there a second to that?
Second that.
Robin Floyd seconds that motion. Is there any further discussion about the adding special regulations for hand grabbing of catfish at Yatesville Lake on page 16? If there is no further discussion or questions, Mr. Secretary, would you take a roll call vote again?
Commissioner Floyd?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Swallows?
Aye.
Commissioner Lillard?
Aye.
Commissioner Farrell?
Aye, by Zoom.
Commissioner Horn?
Aye.
By Zoom, and I vote aye. 7, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Then the motion carries unanimously. That concludes the action items for today. The next items are discussion items, and I believe Mr. Kelly is going to present about hunting on conservation camp properties. I want to also reiterate the fact that since we divided this meeting into some of those issues, I think especially catfish issues that some people had written in about, will be read at the next commission meeting since they're not pertinent to today's agenda, but they will not be forgotten. They'll be read at those, both from commercial and sport fishermen concerning catfish, at probably the June 16th meeting. Just want to remind everybody that these public comments that have been sent in will be read at the time when that is on the agenda that addresses that letter from the public. So, Mr. Kelly, you have the floor, sir, concerning hunting on conservation camp properties.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. So this is a proposal being brought forward by the I&E Division that gets to expanded opportunity for youth and new hunters. The I&E Division proposes promulgation of a new regulation to allow for special mentored hunts on all 3 conservation camp properties. We're increasing the number of department-sponsored mentor youth hunts facilitated by the division staff, as well as seeking to optimize use of conservation camp properties outside of summer conservation camp timeframe. So that is June through August is the timeframe for camps.
Mr. Kelly, you all proposed to do these hunts to be conducted during statewide season. Now, does that mean the statewide season or during the youth seasons or both? In other words, do you know if there's a clarification of which statewide season you're talking about?
I think it's any statewide season.
So then it could be during the youth season, or it could be during the long deer season if it was a deer?
Correct.
Just as long as it's within one of those state seasons, not a special season just for that?
No, not a special season.
I just wanted clarification that when we say statewide season, we don't necessarily mean the 10 or 12 day deer season. It could be during the youth. It's whatever you all promulgate the regulation to say. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Other questions? Go ahead, Ryan.
How many youth do we think this would, how many could we have? How many hunters?
Well, at this time, we're thinking 5 of these hunts. I'm not sure. It'll depend on staff availability, mentor availability. I don't have a firm number at this time.
Okay. Would the mentors be staff only?
No.
No, others could be involved in this, other organizations?
My understanding is that staff would serve as the mentors. Staff only would serve as the mentors, but there would be volunteers that could assist with these hunts.
Go ahead.
How is the selection process going to be done for people to participate in this, and what's defined as a if it's not just youth, is it just youth, or is it like a?
No, it could be a new hunter.
So
it could be a youth hunter.
What's the qualification to be considered a new hunter? First year license, or?
I would have to check on that. I don't know the answer to that.
And do we know how they're going to be selected?
I don't think we have decided that at this point.
I might point out that Gabe is, Deputy Commissioner Jenkins is out of state right now at a special education meeting, and Kevin Kelly has been kind enough to present that, so some of these answers he may not have at this point. And I believe, are they asking for permission, if I'm understanding this correct, from the commission to go ahead with starting that or finishing it? In other words, do you want permission to do it all now without any further look-see from the commission, or do you want permission to go ahead with the promulgation of it and to write it all out and then represent it to the commission?
Well, I think my understanding is that in order to allow public hunting, this is public property.
Mm-hmm.
The department leases this property from either the TVA or the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeking permission to promulgate this regulation to allow public hunting on this public property.
Right.
So I think details will be worked out. Be happy to come back before the commission.
I was going to say, I believe the commissioners are going. I'm not speaking on y'all's behalf, so interrupt me if there's something that you want to add to that. I believe that they would be in favor of doing something like that, but I think they want a little more detail about how the finished product is going to look prior to us saying, go ahead with whatever you want to do and turn it loose.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Mr.
This is a discussion item, so it's coming back if nobody objects.
Yeah, I know, but I want to make sure that it's understood that we'll get a second reading of the final details.
Sure.
I know it's a discussion item. Yes, sir.
I have a little bit of a comment. I don't know about the other conservation camps, but I've been on Camp Curry in western Kentucky, and there are areas there that would very much lend themselves to taking disabled hunters too, as well as youth. So I would strongly say that, if you're going to allow some disabled hunters, because there are a lot of folks that might hunt if they had someone to help them, and this would be a good property to do that.
We don't have a lot of disabled areas too. We had that conversation a few months back, a few meetings back. So
go ahead, Ryan.
I may be off base there, but
that's a good suggestion, Ryan.
I think this is a wonderful idea. I think that if we are limited by staff, or if there's not any hurdles, that we should look at how we could open this up to organizations and our partners out there that are trying to get mentors and our youth started. The R3 program, I think it's a wonderful idea, and we should go full bore ahead with this. If there are no obstacles to it, but we should be defining in how we do it, and also really look to our partners in the field who have done mentor youth hunts and use those organizations and allow them to be involved with this if we can.
Sure, good comment. Commissioner Storm?
Be very brief, but I think the intent of this is just an R3, it's outreach. And so I think to conceptualize this, that's what we're trying to do with it. And so Gabe will bring in some more thorough details, but it is an R3 outreach and a opportunity, public land for us to further enhance that. Could be squirrels, could be waterfowl, could be deer, a multitude of things, turkey.
Mr. Lillard.
I'm definitely in favor of providing more opportunity, whether it be hunting or fishing, on all the public land that we have available in the state, WMAs, velo properties, things of that nature. So the fact that we're looking at these camps to provide more opportunity for our youth, or for maybe a handicap, or others, I think that it's great. And I know in my district in the 5th, we can have lots of volunteers assist the department. We've got a lot of good clubs and organizations up there that would be happy to help on mentor hunts or fishing or anything of that nature. We just recently had our 44th annual Special Olympics Kids Fishing Derby, Special Olympics Derby, back in the 5th District, and it was well attended, and we had probably 5-to-1 volunteers there. And so it's good to see us doing these things, and I think that we should look to provide more opportunity to allow the public to access our resources on the lands that we have.
Good. Any further discussion? That's all good discussion.
Yeah, the only thing I'm recommending is that we have a clear, defined process. I'm all for opening up, just for the reason Josh said. It's just a clear process of who qualifies and how they apply, so it's equal opportunity.
Good.
So
go ahead. Go ahead, Deputy.
That would not be in not likely be in the recommendation or the details that Gabe brings forward in the action item, but those could be presented to the commission or shared with you all informally by email if you all prefer, as they're developed by INE, to provide those R3 opportunities in the future. So this is basically just allowing for it in regulation so that INE can develop these opportunities for
that's kind of why I was getting that clarity there. Even though it's a discussion item, we're going to move on to an action item. I wanted to make sure what the action was going to be when it comes back up. Mr. Kelly, go ahead.
Clarify just the information that I brought along today. The mentors would be department staff or volunteers working with the department staff. The volunteers would go through the training and vetting process, including KSP background checks, and the volunteer mentor would not be working with youth, so it would be an adult hunter.
Okay, good. Okay, so we'll entertain a motion concerning the hunting and conservation camp properties and promulgating a regulation that will help that. So I'll entertain a motion concerning that request from, go ahead, Mr. Fisher.
I'll make a motion to pass this attachment D
Onto
onto
action
an action item and ask for further clarification from the commission's questioning.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll make a second.
So Josh Lillard seconds that motion. So the motion before the commission is that we pass this on for further research and a little clarification as an action item for the next meeting. Will you have that by the next meeting, you think, Mr. Kelly? Or will that have to be the August meeting?
We'll make every effort possible.
To make it for the June, because that's only going to give you 3 weeks to do that.
I think we'll be able to bring additional details. It may not be a complete picture of what this program may look like, but we'll work to bring additional details and clarification to the commission.
Good. If there's no further discussion, Mr. Secretary, would you take a vote for that?
Commissioner Floyd?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Swallows?
Aye.
Commissioner Lillard?
Aye.
Commissioner Farrell?
Aye, by Zoom.
Commissioner Horn?
Aye.
By Zoom, and I vote aye. It'd be 8, Mr. Chairman.
Then the motion carries unanimously. The last discussion item.
7, I misspoke, it's 7.
7, thank you. The motion to move on to an action item then passes unanimously. The next item of discussion is commercial guide license and license tags and permit fees. Major Shane Carrier, I believe you're going to do that presentation.
Gentlemen, I'm gonna bring my hot seat with me. Gun belts and armrests don't get long, especially when you're my size. So good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Here on behalf of the Law Enforcement Division, but this is a joint effort between the Commissioner's Office, Law Enforcement, Fisheries, and Wildlife. So we would are proposing to amend 301 KAR 2030 and 301 KAR 5022, which is the fee regulation. This is attachment D2. The Commissioner's Office, Fisheries, Law Enforcement, and Wildlife Divisions recommend modification to the commercial guide regulation to require reporting for both hunting and fishing guides, update the requirements to obtain a commercial guide license, update the commercial guide application fee, and amend the fee for commercial guides.
So this, excuse me for interrupting you, this gentleman is on page 18 and 19. There's a lot of blue here, so there's a lot to look at here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Major.
I'll be happy to go through each one if you'd like, Chairman.
Gentlemen, would you all like for him to go through each one of the blue items? Those would be the changes that they propose. We're running pretty good on time. I think that'd be good, Major.
Okay.
That way the public can hear those too, and I see Mr. Thomas here, so I know later during the comments he's going to want to make a comment. So
Yes, sir. So first up, update the application to require applicants to provide. So this will be whenever they apply for the guide license. Secretary of State Business Identification Number. Indicate what primary game, both fish and wildlife species, they plan to target or pursue with their clients, and require applicants to indicate the amount of land they currently have leased at the time of application if the application is planned to be a hunting commercial guide. Second one, for commercial guides who indicate they're a fishing guide, we will require a monthly report to be submitted online that provides the following information for each guided trip. The guide name and license number, the date they fish or bow fish, the water body they're on, the species they're targeting, the number of anglers per trip, the hours fished per trip, fish species caught/shot, and numbers per trip in the following categories: sublegal releases, legal released fish, and harvested, and it can be approximate. And then there's a stipulation there to make sure they do submit these reporting, and the failure to submit a monthly report will result in a courtesy reminder letter the first month, a warning letter for failure to submit the second month, and then after 3 months of failure to submit the reports, the commercial guiding license will be suspended for the remainder of the license year. Now for the hunting guides, the next section, we would require an annual report at the end of the license year that is submitted online that provides the following information: the guide name and license number, wildlife species targeted during the hunting season, the total number of guided clients broken down by the number of resident and non-resident hunters, number of animals harvested, broken down by species and sex, if known, of the animal. Number of big game animals shot but not recovered, broken down by species, if known. Name of counties where guiding occurred. Names of any public land areas where guiding was done. And then whether or not guiding was done for any pen-raised animals or at facilities that are permitted as a shooting facility. And then also, similar to the fishing guide, failure to submit the end of the license year report result in a lack of issuance of the license for the following year until the report from the previous year submitted. And then for commercial guides who indicate they commercially guide for hunting and fishing, the reports outlined above are required for both. And then the last bullet points there is amendment of the fee. Resident commercial guide fee from $150 to $500, and non-resident commercial guide fee from $400 to $2,000.
I'll ask the first question because I know
Okay.
I'll have some questions. In your all's research, did you look at other states? I know you normally do that.
Yes, sir. We
Did you
have.
all survey other states and they have similar to this, or you?
We are in line with the surrounding states. We have an ad hoc committee comprised of members of all divisions in the commissioner's office, and we've met multiple times discussing these items, and we have looked at other states. We're right in line with those, not only in requirements but also fees, we feel like.
Robin Floyd, I know you have a question. I can sense it now.
That's good that you've got ESP. It would be a competitive advantage in your position. There are a few folks in Western Kentucky in my district that do something else for a living but guide a little bit part-time. They may take 200 or 300 or 5 in a year, not many. It would seem reasonable to me that there would be some break point where those kinds of guides would not have to pay an exorbitant amount of money to take literally friends hunting. I would think $500 would be way too much for them. I'm not saying that I know. I'm not saying I know the right thing.
Right.
What I'm saying is I want to be fair to everybody. If somebody only takes a few folks on property, it would seem to me that if they take fewer than a certain number of people, maybe they might pay a little bit less.
And your concerns is shared amongst the group. We've had that same conversation and looked at other avenues, potential avenues, as far as a scale based on, the fee they pay is based on the number of clients they take per year once we determine that.
Well, let me just say this is way outside of my area of expertise. I'm not saying that I'm trying to get a certain thing done here.
Yes.
But it is, I think, so valid.
It's a valid point.
Hang on, Brian. I've got Mr. Farrell. You're next, sir, and then Paul, and then you. Go ahead, Mr. Farrell.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hunting and fishing are two different sports. Of course, we all know that. There's a lot more money involved in hunting and having a guide to take you out hunting, and I can understand the expense. But what the problem is, I'm getting calls from people who say they guide and they fish, and they said this will put them out of business as far as the fee. They can't even imagine an increase this much. They say that the fee would be too high, it's too expensive for them, and they won't be able to be successful in their guide business if they have to have this much of an increase. So I've never taken a guided trip, so I really don't know that much about it. But I just know from the phone calls that I received, they thought that it was a little bit too expensive and just too big of an increase for them to be profitable.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. I would say the reason you never have needed a guide is because of your great expertise in fishing. You really don't require a guide. You're so good at it.
I'm gonna be your guide.
If the charge is not too high, we'll talk about that. Mr. Horn, go ahead, sir, with your question. Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Good input.
Is there a difference between a commercial fishing license and a commercial guide license?
Yes, sir, there is. So though a lot of people get those confused sometimes, but our commercial fishing license allows them to harvest fish commercially out of public waters and sell them. The commercial guide license is where the guide is actually taking a client to harvest fish recreationally.
And a commercial fishing license allows certain types of nets or?
Yes, sir, it does. It allows them to use commercial fishing gear to harvest, the rough fish commercially and sell those.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Horn. Go ahead, Mr. Fisher.
I've got several
But do any of the states around us have a different price for a fishing guiding license versus a hunting guide license, or are they all lumped into one?
I can't recall that off the top of my head. I can certainly get that information to you.
'Cause
I know we looked at it, but I don't recall. Brian, I think we were the one. I can't remember. Can you?
I do not know.
I think there's a good possibility there is, but I can't for sure say so.
Because I just look at it, what are they paying for the resource that they are taking, and what's our
Right.
investment in those resources?
Right.
And that's what I would recommend on setting the prices. And Jerry, while I do agree that I think you should have that, maybe fishing's not as lucrative, costly and lucrative as a resource to the department. $350 extra for that license is a fishing pole, and so if my argument back would be if they can't afford an additional fishing pole in their boat, then they're not going to be profitable either way. And then another question I have is, and I've asked Stephen to look it up, and I threw it on the last minute, so he has not given a proper chance, but I'm hoping he'll come back. But I thought there was a reg in place that said that commercialization of public lands is prohibited, and we got down in here names of any public land areas where guiding was done. So I don't know if that's in conflict with the reg, but
So we have a regulation that limits commercial activity on a wildlife management area.
What is that?
Probably
reg?
need to dig, and off the top of my head, I don't know. I'm not that sharp on numbers, but it does exist.
It's the WMA reg.
It's in the WMA reg, I'm pretty sure.
So we're going to ask them to provide information where it's prohibited.
Well, we've typically allowed commercial guides to operate on
Public
wildlife management and public land. We have had, in the past, we've had legal counsel prior to these gentlemen give us an opinion that the guiding did not fall in that category. It was of their opinion that intent of that regulation was concession stands, vending, food trucks, things of that nature. So, but a clarification would be beneficial.
Yeah, I think we need to get that clarified as well.
Yeah.
If we can.
Is that your last of your questions? You got any?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Commissioner Swallows, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, on the guide fee, and especially with fishing, which I'm attuned to, and I fish the Cumberland River a lot. I fish with guides. I spent 37 years in the financial services industry, and this reminds me of the regulation that was continually added and added and added until you used to be able to get a client with this much paperwork, and by the end of that, it was this much. So it seems to me to be a lot of detail that we're asking a guy a guide who wants to guide on a place like the Cumberland River,
Right.
maybe as a part-time thing, or as his side gig, that knows the river and fishes it very well. He can take people out on a weekend or on holidays. How many opportunities would he have, and how many clients could he have?
Right.
So, we're adding a lot of onerous things to a guy. It makes it a barrier to starting a business, and I think it should be looked at. If you have less than 25 clients a year, I would think it should be a scale type of approach, and there should be some thought given to that. The other is, a lot of the questions I have is how much and why do we need all this detail? We need somebody to indicate what fish they're after on the Cumberland River. They're going to fish for trout or striper.
Right.
It's not a big deal. I mean, bottom line, it just seems like a lot, but to have them say, how many hours did you fish? You can tell me. I'm looking for explanation. I'm not saying it's not necessary. It just seems to be onerous.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Briggs.
I just wanted to chime in that some of our biologists are looking at this as, it's data gathering for us. That
Right.
we don't know, what the impact of guides are on our sport fisheries. And it would be really helpful information for us to know these kind of things. And so, as Shane said, we've had a committee of looking at it a joint committee, but we've also had a group of people within the fisheries division that have talking about exactly what kind of things we wanted, to get. And yes, it is a lot of information, but in a way, it's just the kind of stuff that you put in a fishing diary. Right. I would hazard a guess a lot of guys keep a lot of this information anyway. And but so we're just asking that we get it reported to us, and we want to develop this as an online reporting, so it, to be as as less onerous as possible.
Right. Yeah, and I think that holds true for the Wildlife Division as well. Both of these aspects were data gathering to help them, make better decisions on resources.
Go ahead, Ralph.
And to that, I would say that, most of the serious people, guides that I would know, the ones that I'm talking specifically on the fishing side, but I'm sure also on big game and everything else, would have those records and know. And they would keep it in a log.
Right.
But doing that and making it an easy reporting format, it would seem to me that we're getting a very great survey and service from our guides that would cooperate with this and provide that information. It would be a huge benefit to what we're trying to do. So in doing this and looking at this, approaching it from the partnership level of, we're in this together. Mm-hmm. We're just not trying to extract fees out of our commercial guides and fishermen.
Okay, Mr. Fisher, before we come to you, by Robert's Rules of Order, I need to let the others speak who have not yet spoken. So go ahead, Mr. Lillard. You first, and then Mr. Morgan, and then back to you, Brian. That way we'll follow Robert's Rules.
Thank you, Chairman Clenard. I've spoken to quite a few guides about this. We've gotten quite a few emails with people's information and how they feel about it. One of the things that I thought was really good is they proposed to me potentially, for instance, if you guide on Lake Cumberland or the Cumberland River, you also have to have a captain's license because of the navigable waterway requirement there. So that's a U.S. Coast Guard license that they have to apply for. A lot of them spend money to take a test to get that, and then it's like $600 or $700 to renew it every 4 or 5 years, whatever it might be. But then what you get with that is you're going to have, if you pay that guide fee to go out with that guide, you have a guide that has got his license through the state to guide you. He's got his Coast Guard's license as well. And then if like DNR pulls those people over to check them, they can check for the guide license, but I don't believe there's any check for the Coast Guard license because Coast Guard would have to pull them over to check for that. However, we do have reciprocity with law enforcement, whereas if you were to check somebody and they came up with like a warrant or something like that, then you can take them to jail. So I think it would be good if we could also check for that captain's license. And then additionally, if as a guide, you're paying the fee to be a guide in the state of Kentucky, if we could do something to help them additionally, would be like if we could have some link on the webpage that says approved guides could be by body of water, for instance. So like if you're an approved guide on Lake Cumberland or Cumberland River, you would have to have your guide's license, you would have to have your Coast Guard permit number, and then that way people that are looking to go and do those activities know that they can go and get a resource that is following the rules properly and getting the things required and necessary to do those activities, and that you're probably going to have an enjoyable experience when you go out with them. I mean, obviously you can't guarantee if you're going to catch fish or kill an animal, but they're following the right process and doing what's right. And I think that a lot of the feedback I got is there's people that feel that there's people that might not have that Coast Guard license and they're guiding with the currently $150 fee and not doing the other stuff that they're supposed to, and that could potentially be dangerous for their customers or our sportsmen and women. So I think with the data collection aspect, if we could roll that into the app that we have, the Fish and Boat KY app, you're logging on there with your own information. If you have a guide fee, I think we should be able to have a separate page for them where they can click on it. If they're out there, they can do it real quickly. Maybe even have a section they can shoot some pictures if they want to help get all that information back to our biologist for that day's catch, where it can be something real easy because if you wait and you fill out the reports at the end of the year, then that's going to be very cumbersome. You got to remember every one of those trips. But if you're like, before you leave for the day and you're letting your boat dry off or whatever, you can just click all that stuff into the app. It'd be really easy and help them out. I did get a lot of pushback on the cost moving up $500. Obviously from a percentage standpoint, I guess it's like 350% increase. But I look at the costs involved to do something like guiding, and let's just say Cumberland Lake again. Most of those guides are going to rent a slip there, and they bring that up. Well, it's $5,000 a year to rent a slip. Well, that is true. And if you want to have your boat in the slip and easier access to do that, and maybe have a place where you can put a light out and get bait easy, then you need to pay that money to have that spot. A lot of people pay that money to have a spot just to recreate and not even the fishing boat. So that's just a cost that you have to run your business. You could easily just put your boat in and out every day and not have that extra expense if you wanted to. A lot more difficult on you, but that's something that you could do to avoid that cost. So I'm definitely in favor of the increase, and I think that it will help the department and make sure that we have people that are doing what they're supposed to do out there with our clientele, if you say, the sportsmen and women of the state, or even out of the state.
Thank you, Mr. Lillard. Mr. Morgan, and then after that, Mr. Fisher.
As far as the license goes, if I have a guiding license and people pay me to take them out and guide them to shoot a wild turkey or a deer, and I have a pretty good business, and then I know a guy may own 2 or 3 farms or 2 farms, and he's willing to guide for me on 1 or 2 places. Would he have to purchase the full cost, or could a guide have people under him at a certain number of places at a reduced rate? Does that make sense?
It does. We went down that road a few years ago. If you remember, we had guide helpers. We thought
I do remember that.
It didn't work out the way we had intended. So right now, it depends on what that person actually does on those other farms. If they're just providing the property and providing the guide access to it to take the client on their property, they would not be required to have a guide license. But if they are accompanying that person in the field, they too would have to have a guide license. If they're doing anything to assist the hunter in being successful as far as in the field, other than short of providing a place to go, they would be required to have a guide license for that assistance.
I think it'd be worth considering to see about maybe having a helper with the commercial guidelines, especially with the increase.
Right.
I mean, that would take some of the pain away. I mean, he could have some help in going to, and it could be limited. A person couldn't just be a full-fledged partner, not have to buy his license, but if he took 2 trips a year or something, I mean, I could see where that'd be something to look at.
We have some large guide operations. They have camp cooks, and then they have people go assist, retrieve animals. Those people aren't required to have a guide license. They're typically, basically employees of the commercial guide. It's when the commercial guide can't get to all his clients. He's got more clients than he personally can take to the field, and he hires you to take, client X, then you would need a guide license because you're the one accompanying the hunter.
Guiding activities probably more with turkeys down where I'm at than it is anywhere. I mean, any other species, turkeys, and I can see where maybe that would help. Be worth looking at anyway.
Sure.
And as far as the public lands versus private lands, I think that's a good thing to have in there. If you make a payment online, they say, are you a valid signer of this checking account? I think we need to know where they're at, and they might tell on themselves, you know what I'm saying, where they shouldn't be. It'd be easier to keep track.
It gives our biologists an idea of how much pressure is occurring on private versus public.
Right,
and
that's exactly right.
The more land that's leased in an area, the less access is there. It pushes more people to the public land. So I think that's what they're driving at, to have an idea of what that number is. And just real quick, while I'm thinking about it, I'm sure the question will come up. Numbers-wise, 2023 up to this point, we have 101 hunting guides that have registered. We have 93 fishing guides, and we have 25 that have registered and received a commercial guide license to guide for both. So that's 219 total. Those are residents.
and we have 30 non-resident hunting guides and 5 non-resident fishing guides. So that's 35 total non-residents. That's where we're at right now. So to give you an idea of the numbers we're talking about here.
Mr. Fisher, your turn.
Yeah, so can you take me back to what you all consider a guide? Who is required? What's the definition of guide? Because the way you just explained it, sounds like if they are not out in the field assisting them with the hunt, they don't have to have a guide.
They do not.
So I can go lease 10,000 acres tomorrow. I can set up all the blinds. I can plant the corn, knock it down, or put up a deer stand and take that guy, drop him off in the field and say, just sit here.
I think you're going a little step, they don't have to be in the field, but when they're going into the field, placing those things to assist.
He would be considered assisting. Yeah,
So
you'd be.
if somebody else is taking them to the farm, would they not still consider to be required to have a guide license? If they got a helper and that guy is running them and dropping them off on these farms?
It's a very thin gray line.
So
It's a judgment call on the officer based on the activities. But we typically, like if you lease your farm and say, here's 200 acres, here are the boundaries.
Right.
You can hunt 3 days and that's it. Here's the gate and you're on your own. You're not guiding, you're not doing anything to assist them. When you start setting up a farm and placing blinds and feeders, and whenever they show up, you say, here's the gate, and oh, by the way, go to the right and climb this ladder stand, there's a feeder there. Your activities have assisted that hunter in being successful. So that would trigger the need for a guide license. But I will agree with you, we have to, as an officer, as an enforcement, we have to really dig down deep to see at what extent a person is going to assist that hunter in the field.
So regardless of this, from a law enforcement perspective, do you think we need to take a look at that definition and clarify that for you all?
I think that's something we could definitely look at an improvement on to nail down. We've looked at some other states to see how they handle it. I'll be honest with you, it's kind of a gray area in all of them. When you throw that leasing component in there, where somebody just pays a trespass fee to use the farm for a day or 3 days, it throws that little caveat in there that makes it a little tough.
Major, since you said this was a collaborative effort between fisheries, wildlife, law enforcement, and the commissioner's office, here in a minute or two, when I ask them to make a motion considering passing this on to an action item, can you give me an idea of when that action item should occur? Because most everybody's going to interpret that this would be addressed at the June meeting. Are you not going to be ready until the August meeting to be able to represent this because you've got collaborative efforts from 4 different places, and I know how that can get lost in one department before it gets moved on to the other from 7 years of experience. So I kind of want to clear up for their sake, if we pass this on to an action item, can you give us an idea, and the public an idea, of how long they'll have to address these issues? Because I don't want to give the public 3 weeks only to respond to 2 pages of stuff here and it being the June meeting. I don't think that's fair to the public.
Yes.
So we'd have to give them adequate time to respond to these, because I know the guide associations and those things would want to do that. So when we get ready to pass this, can you give them pass it on to an action item? Can you give us any idea of when that action might occur?
Yes, sir. We would definitely prefer August. We feel like there's a lot of material here. There's going to still be a lot more discussion. I feel like we're going to get a lot more feedback from the public.
And I think it's going to be real important to get input from the outside. Sir, are you standing just to relax? Are you standing to make a comment? Okay, that's okay. I was just going to say, if you've signed up to speak, we'll let you do that during the public time. But you just stand to get relaxed. Good. So then August has been. So we skipped to June because they will get calls saying, I thought that was a discussion item for June meeting. Well, if it's at least August before, or you could compile all the divisions together for those questions, because I think they need to know that, and the public needs to know that, so they'll be able to respond to that 2 pages of, I want to change this, I want to change that.
Yeah, I think that's a lot to get done.
So has everybody got that?
I'd like to see them come back and make recommendations on the guide definition itself, if y'all are struggling with that. But
well, that and the fees, all these questions that everybody else, all these others have brought up are great areas of discussion, but you're gonna, I know how this runs usually. If there's 4 different divisions that are gonna have to look at this, law enforcement say, I think we need to reduce the fee for fishing to X amount, and then now you got fisheries to ask, now you got the commissioner to ask, then you've got, so this could drag out a little bit. And
I agree, there's a lot of good points that have been made.
Oh, yeah, a lot of great questions, great points, and I know the major saying, yeah, we've looked at that too. I think it was important for him to specify that we have looked at other states. This isn't just something we've come up with in Kentucky, but there's going to be a lot of input from people who are both anglers and hunters who are going to say, I know how this guide is going to do, and we've got to consider that to some degree too. They're going to pass that fee increase on to me, so it was going to cost me $100 a day to fish, and that's going to cost me $125. So you'll have a lot of input from both guides and from anglers and from hunters who are going to want to make their comments about this. So I want to make sure we don't rush into this, and that's why I wanted clarification for your all's benefit about when you had to act on this. So, okay, are there other questions about passing this on to go ahead with researching it and making it an action item based on the fact that they'll come back for some time from now with the answers to many great questions and comments that you all have made?
I just think anything that we're moving today or even at the June meeting to an action item should not be an action item until the August meeting to give plenty of time for us to get feedback from our constituents.
Yeah, that's why I asked his clarification. So if we pass this on as an action item, I want everybody to understand we wouldn't be doing it in June.
Right.
Matter of fact, in June, it might be good at the June meeting to clarify some of these because they may have additional questions. So the motion that I'll ask for is to make this an action item, but to defer its action until we get a little more information, maybe at the June meeting, if that's good with the commission, to get more information in June for it still to be the action item that we'll see in August. Is that good with you all?
So wouldn't we just move it as a discussion item into the June meeting or continue discussion in June?
You could. We could make it just to table this as an action item, but move it onto a further discussion in June, and with the caveat that hopefully we can make some decision by August. We don't want to push it down the road too far.
If we're not ready to vote on it, we haven't had enough time, and it's an action item, we just vote to say, hey, let's table this for further discussion till the next meeting. So we can keep pushing off just because it's an action item, don't mean we have to vote on it. So if we're not comfortable, my recommendations, we just don't vote on it. We say, hey, let's table it. Here's some clarification points, let's go.
Any comments from the two Zoom participants?
I don't want to do so.
You all understand what we're talking about, Jerry and Paul?
Yes. I just want to, I don't think fishing guys should be lumped in with the hunting guys.
Okay.
Because of the profitability of a fishing guide and a hunting guide. Hunting is, we know a guide could cost maybe as much as $10,000, where a fishing trip is not, you can go out for $250 a day maybe. So there's a big difference right there. So I don't think the hunting guide and the fishing guide should be lumped into one.
Right.
I think it needs to be kind of separated, and like we were talking about the price, they said that's going to be too expensive for a lot of them.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry, for your comments. And I think to some degree, law enforcement has separated this into some things for hunters and some things for fishermen, hunting guides, and some for fishing guides. So maybe they'll look into that with the comments that you've made. So if it pleases the commission, do you want to just pass this on then without a vote to make it an action item and just ask for them to bring back at the June meeting further clarification of some of the ideas they have, and then we'll look at it as an action item? Will that please the commission?
Yeah.
If that be the case, then we will not have to vote on that at this time. So we'll pass that on, gentlemen. If we can, we'll put that on the June agenda. I don't see Brian, but we'll put that on the June agenda. Oh, there he is back there. Put that on the June agenda as further discussion before we make it an action item. Okay, with that being said, that concludes our discussion items for the day. And prior to going into closed session, two things. I'm going to declare about a 15-minute break if that pleases the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And before that, though, I'm going to ask legal staff to go ahead and read the reason that we need to go into closed session to discuss two land acquisition projects. So, legal, if you don't care to read that, after which time we'll take a break. But before we do that break, I'll ask for a motion to go into closed session.
Yes,
so,
sir.
Go ahead, Mr. Porter. Thank you, sir.
All meetings of a quorum of the members of any public agency at which any public business is discussed or at which any action is taken by the agency shall be public meetings open to the public at all times except for the specific exemptions listed in KRS 61.810 or otherwise provided by law. The Commission has business today that will require entering into a closed session. KRS 61.815 requires notice to the general nature of the business to be discussed in the closed session, the reason for the closed session, and the provision of KRS 61.810 that authorizes it to be publicly announced to entering closed session for most open meeting exceptions. In the proposed closed session, the Commission will discuss 2 potential land acquisitions via purchase. The discussions shall occur in the closed session to protect the estate's interest in the acquisition of land. By identifying the KDFWR's interest in the particular parcels and their location, the general public would be alerted to the various owners' willingness to sell the properties and our intent to purchase. As such, the publicity increases the likelihood that other parties may make offers on the property. Such competing offers could increase the value of the subject properties. Alternatively, a private party could purchase the property from the current owners more quickly than the Commonwealth and require the Commonwealth to pay a premium to acquire it. This portion of the closed session is authorized by KRS 61.810 under Section 1B for the potential land acquisitions. Upon an approved motion, the Commission will enter into a closed session. The Commission shall not discuss any other matters and no action shall be taken or will occur during the closed session. During the closed session, council and necessary members of the staff will be present to advise the Commission. At this point, I would ask for a motion and a second to enter into the closed section for land acquisition.
Thank you. So I need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
I have a motion to go into closed session from Mr. Fisher. Is there a second to that?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Swallows. Any discussion? Then let's vote on that, if you would, Mr. Secretary.
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Floyd?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Swallows?
Aye.
Commissioner Lillard?
Aye.
Commissioner Farrell?
Aye, by Zoom.
Commissioner Horn?
Aye.
By Zoom, I vote aye. It would be 7, Mr. Chairman.
So unanimous vote to go into closed session. For land acquisition today, how long do you think it will take before I hit the gavel here and close out the session for?
There are two parcels, 15 minutes.
15 minutes. So it is now 10:24. I'd like to reconvene, if it be everybody's pleasure, at 11 o'clock after we have looked at these and taken a little break. So we'll go into closed session. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll be back at 11 o'clock to finish the meeting.
Let us pray. Lord, today as we come and pay honor and respect and tribute to those that have made the ultimate sacrifice, Lord, I ask you today to give that grace and that peace and that comfort that only you can give for anyone who is grieved in heart and grieved in spirit today. And this I pray in your precious and holy name. Amen.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming? the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Counter! Ooh! Hooray!
This is a very important event for us each year to come together and pay honor and tribute to these 10 officers that have paid the ultimate sacrifice for the citizens of this Commonwealth. It's important for the families to know that we'll never forget, but it's also important for our officers. It's a reminder to them that no day is routine, and each time they put on the badge, they know the dangers that accompany it.
When I became commissioner of the department, 2019, I was quick to recognize we are one big family. We celebrate together, we work together, and we mourn together. This ceremony, it symbolizes honor, respect, and love that we have for our fellow employees. We have tremendous respect for all of our employees, including our courageous and dedicated conservation officers and their families. I pray for our employees. I've said that since day one. I pray for their safety. I encourage you all to do the same. Pray for the families. Pray for the lost. And pray for the life that we love. Also pray that this agency always remembers those that gave their life in the line of duty. It's my honor to be here, and thank you all, and God bless you.
The Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources has lost 10 officers in the line of duty since 1912. We vow to never forget our fallen officers and their families. The memorial wreath is adorned with 10 white carnations, which represent each of our 10 fallen officers. The red roses surrounding them represent their families.
Fishing, and boating laws across Kentucky, provide public hunting and fishing access through the management of more than 1 million acres of natural areas and waterways, provide quality fishing opportunities for anglers close to home by annually stocking more than 5 million fish in public waters, build and maintain public boat ramps, shooting ranges, bank fishing access areas, and other public facilities, restore streams and wetlands on private and public lands using special grants, assist private landowners with fish and wildlife habitat improvement, inform and educate millions of youth and adults through education and outreach programs. Not only are we responsible for the conservation of the few dozen species in Kentucky that are hunted, fished, or trapped, we are responsible for all of our state's incredibly diverse animal species, nearly 1,000 of them. All of this is accomplished with funding through user fees and grants, instead of state taxes. The majority of the department's revenue comes from the sale of licenses and permits, federal funds, excise taxes on outdoor-related equipment, and boat registrations. Hunting, fishing, and other wildlife-related recreation generate nearly $6 billion in total economic impact to the Commonwealth, supporting about 70,000 jobs. All of us at Kentucky Fish and Wildlife seek to be good stewards of the great outdoors, leaving it in better shape than we found it. Passionate and mission-focused, that's who we are. Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife resources, that's what we do.
Got one. Get him in there, Annie. Get her, Sadie.
Get in there, Sadie.
Jeez.
There's turkeys all around him.
Double point. They're in there. There they go.
Can't think anything I'd rather do, so.
Do you know there's a group of people representing you, the sportsmen and sportswomen of the Commonwealth, when it comes to decision making at the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife? I'm Dr. Carl Kleinert, Chairman of the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Commission. I'm one of 9 district commissioners whose job it is to oversee the Department of Fish and Wildlife and advise the commissioner on actions to take that are beneficial to the department and in the best interest of wildlife and conservation of natural resources. Kentucky is home to me, and I grew up hunting and fishing in the Commonwealth. It's my duty, along with 8 other commission members, to be your voice in conservation when it comes to enjoying the outdoors in this state. Every decision made on your behalf is well researched, thought out, and discussed before ever coming to a vote. That's our job, and we don't take it lightly. All we ask is that you, the sportsmen and sportswomen of Kentucky, participate in the process. When a district commissioner vacancy arises, we need you to nominate someone for the position. You can come to our meetings, you can reach out to us via email or telephone. Just go online at fw.ky.gov and search Commission to find your representative. As I see it, the job of Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Commission is to leave our natural resources in better shape than when we first got here, so that every generation after us can enjoy it the same way we have.
Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife. At the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, we take those words to heart. Our fisheries division is comprised of fisheries biologists and technicians, fish hatchery managers, fisheries researchers, and administrative specialists. We focus on aquatic species and their habitats across the Commonwealth. Large lakes, vast reservoirs, small farm ponds, open flowing rivers, secluded mountain streams. Kentucky has them all. These waterways span some 215,000 surface acres of water. public spaces that more than 250 species of aquatic animals call home. And every year, more than 500,000 people enjoy the excellent fishing and other recreational opportunities these diverse waterways afford. Conserving and enhancing these aquatic resources and providing opportunities for their public enjoyment are the two main functions of the Fisheries Division. The primary strategies we use to manage Kentucky's fisheries include habitat improvement, fisheries research, stream restoration, fish stocking, invasive species control, and management of fish populations through regulating fish harvest. Fish habitat improvement usually involves either fostering beneficial aquatic plants or placing physical structures in waterways to provide places for fish and their prey to reproduce or take cover. Most of our public lakes are decades old, and the structure of their habitats has decomposed or has been washed away over time. Providing new fish habitat in aging reservoirs creates much better living conditions for fish and generates significantly more fishing opportunities for anglers. Fisheries research is vital to ensuring the health of all of Kentucky's aquatic species. Unless we know the actual condition of our fisheries, we can't manage them effectively. Annual fish population surveys in our many waterways provide the scientific data on species composition, abundance, and the health that our expert staff need to determine how our fisheries are doing in order to prescribe appropriate management actions. Relatively few of our aquatic species are harvested through recreational or commercial fishing, but the Fisheries Division is responsible for all of them. Researching and conserving Kentucky's lesser-known aquatic species plays a vital role in balancing Kentucky's aquatic ecosystem. Stream and wetland restoration is a key strategy that's spearheaded by the Fisheries Division's Stream Team. These restoration projects are accomplished through dedicated stream and wetland funding. Our Stream Team staff has overseen dozens of projects that have restored hundreds of miles of streams by stabilizing eroding banks and restoring original stream flows. These stream improvements not only benefit hundreds of fish and wildlife species, they also conserve soil and nutrients and improve water quality. In addition to improving the structure of waterways and monitoring the health of aquatic species, the Fisheries Division also uses fish stocking to help keep the fishing great statewide. We stock more than 5 million fish every year, from catfish to muskellunge, striped bass to trout. Fish are stocked across the state to help meet the strong recreational demand of Kentuckians and our visitors to enhance the fishing experience for everyone. Some stockings are aimed at returning native species that have been depleted, such as lake sturgeon and alligator gar. In time, these species will be added to the tremendous variety of fishing opportunities Kentucky offers. We intensively stock more than 40 urban lakes through the Fishing in Neighborhoods, or FINS program, in towns all over Kentucky. The FINS program is a partnership with local governments in which we provide the fish and our municipal partners provide access and maintenance. For many anglers, a FINS lake is the place they learn to cast a line or catch their first fish. Conserving the state fisheries also depends on decreasing threats to aquatic ecosystems. Controlling invasive species reduces the adverse impacts of harmful non-native species, like invasive carp, and is a must in the fight to keep Kentucky waters healthy and thriving. New technologies and innovative practices are helping Kentucky win the fight against these harmful species, which compete with desirable fish. A final key strategy in the Fisheries Division's work is the regulation of recreational and commercial fishing to ensure the health and sustainability of our fisheries for present and future generations. Fishing regulations govern legal fishing methods and place limits on sizes and numbers of fish harvested. Regulations are developed using the best available biological data and input from the public, including key stakeholders who are directly affected by the regulations. A unique combination of skills, experience, and dedication allows our Fisheries Division to strive for optimal management of all of the aquatic species that call Kentucky home. We are the Fisheries Division. We conserve and enhance Kentucky's fisheries and provide outstanding fishing opportunities across the Commonwealth. Passionate and mission-focused, that's who we are. Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife. That's what we do.
Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife. At the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, we take those words to heart. Our Wildlife Division is a team of professionals committed to the conservation of Kentucky's amazing array of wildlife and the habitats they depend on. We are wildlife biologists, land managers, technicians, administrative specialists, mapping experts, all highly trained specialists who can serve the Commonwealth's nearly 1,000 wildlife species, from the wetlands of Fulton County to the mountains of Pike County. Wildlife is vital to our quality of life in many ways, ranging from healthful fun to healthy food. Every year, more than 1 million people participate in wildlife watching, hunting, and trapping in Kentucky. Wildlife recreation benefits our state economy to the tune of $2 billion each year, supporting 23,000 jobs. The Wildlife Division's 2 primary goals are science-based wildlife conservation and providing sustainable opportunities for their enjoyment. The strategies we employ to achieve these goals include game management, conservation of rare and declining species through the Kentucky Wild Program, public lands habitat management and access, private lands technical assistance, invasive species abatement, and wildlife disease monitoring and response. Game management programs include big game, such as deer, elk, and bear, wild turkeys, waterfowl and other migratory birds, and small game, such as squirrels, rabbits, bobwhite quail, and ruffed grouse. Many game species were once depleted to local extinction, or nearly so, by the early 1900s, but are now thriving due to our historic restoration programs. For example, white-tailed deer once numbered as few as 1,000 animals statewide, but stocking from source populations, coupled with careful harvest regulations, have allowed Kentucky's deer herd to grow to nearly 1 million strong. Similarly, elk were once eliminated from Kentucky's landscape through habitat loss and overharvest, but our ambitious restocking program that started in 1997 with 1,500 elk from 7 western states now has resulted in a thriving population, today with thousands of elk in 16 southeastern counties. Your purchase of Kentucky hunting licenses and permits supports game management programs and helps us obtain related federal grants to conserve Kentucky's wildlife and habitats. The Kentucky Wild Program conserves a wide array of species that aren't hunted, fished, or trapped. These include songbirds and raptors, reptiles like turtles, lizards, and snakes, amphibians such as salamanders, toads, and frogs, and freshwater mussels, fishes, and butterflies. These species contribute to a healthy environment for people and wildlife. Our Kentucky Wild team raise and restore mussels and small fishes that provide clean water, develop quality habitat for birds and insects that pollinate our food crops, and monitor and protect bats that help control insect pests. You can support these efforts by joining the Kentucky Wild Program today. Public lands protect important habitats for wildlife and provide public recreational access for hunting, wildlife watching, and other compatible uses. Although the department owns less than 200,000 acres of wildlife management areas, we're able to provide access to over 1 million acres of public lands through partnership agreements with other landowners such as government agencies, timber and coal companies, and private individuals. The Wildlife Division enhances habitats on many of these areas through plantings, prescribed burning, forest improvements, wetlands creation, and placement of animal nesting structures. Private lands assistance is available to owners of farms and other private property. Over the past 3 decades, our biologists have worked with about 2,000 different landowners and walked over some 2 million acres of private land, making habitat improvement recommendations and developing management plans. Our biologists have helped the U.S. Department of Agriculture to implement millions of dollars worth of habitat practices to benefit Kentucky's quail and rabbits, butterflies and other pollinators, songbirds, waterfowl, and other wetland wildlife. Abating threats that invasive animals and plants pose to our native wildlife resources is another important conservation strategy of the Wildlife Division. Staff have improved living conditions for wild animals on thousands of acres in Kentucky through the eradication of invasive plants, such as tall fescue grass and bush honeysuckle shrubs. Wild pigs are an invasive animal that cause costly damage to farmlands, threaten livestock and wildlife with diseases, and directly compete with native species. The Wildlife Division staff has helped landowners remove hundreds of wild pigs on private land, thus minimizing a threat to our native wildlife. Monitoring and responding to wildlife diseases is also a priority for the Wildlife Division. This conservation strategy includes preventing the introduction of new wildlife diseases, as well as controlling diseases whenever possible. Since 2002, the Wildlife Division has tested over 30,000 deer and elk to monitor these herds for the occurrence of chronic wasting disease, or CWD. In short, the Wildlife Division's skilled and dedicated staff cares for the whole spectrum of wildlife that calls Kentucky home, so they can thrive now and in the future. Passionate and mission-focused, that's who we are. Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife, that's what we do.
Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife. At the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, we take those words to heart. The department's Information and Education Division, comprised of educators, communicators, and information specialists, are committed to developing and enhancing awareness and appreciation for Kentucky's diverse natural resources. Its efforts promote responsible attitudes and actions that help to sustain the conservation of the Commonwealth's wildlife and fisheries.
A little better fish than mine.
If you view or read something from Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, it likely was produced by the Information and Education Division. Kentucky Field TV, Kentucky Field Magazine, press releases, regulation guides for hunting, fishing, and boating, and informational videos. They are all developed by this team of communications professionals.
Kentucky Afield, a program designed for sportsmen.
Kentucky Afield TV is the longest running hunting and fishing show in the country, on air since 1953.
Wow, that happened fast.
The Emmy award-winning show's goal is to showcase hunting, fishing, and other outdoor opportunities across the Commonwealth that folks can experience for themselves.
Nice job, man. Thank you.
We also highlight the work of agency biologists and other staff who work to enhance those opportunities and conserve Kentucky's vital natural resources. The show is available to over 8 million households weekly and can be viewed on YouTube and Roku as well.
I'm Chase Winiker, host of the podcast. Lee McClellan, co-host.
The Kentucky Afield podcast brings in Kentucky fish and wildlife experts to talk more in depth about the resources and the abundance of opportunities that they present. Kentucky Afield Magazine is one of the premier publications produced by a state fish and wildlife agency. In circulation since 1945, it was formerly known as Happy Hunting Ground. Articles in the magazine dive deeper into relevant topics among outdoor enthusiasts across Kentucky, ranging from personal interest stories to step-by-step how-to articles. Examples of written pieces include the restoration of elk in eastern Kentucky, how to properly maneuver a kayak, and how to cook your own wild harvest. Every cover of Kentucky Afield magazine since 2000 has featured the artwork of Rick Hill, Kentucky Fish and Wildlife's resident artist. Rick's paintings feature vibrant outdoor scenes and detailed depictions of the native Kentucky fish and wildlife species. Some of the most important publications for Kentucky's more than 1 million outdoor enthusiasts are the hunting, fishing, and boating guides, which summarize regulations that must be followed while in the field or on the water. Need to know the statewide size limit for largemouth bass? That's in the Fishing and Boating Guide. How about when and where you can bear hunt? Look in the Hunting and Trapping Guide. 5 different guides are produced annually by our Information and Education Division. Hard copies of some of these guides can be found at local licensing agents such as sporting goods retailers, bait and tackle shops, and gun shops. All of the guides are posted on our website in PDF format for viewing electronically or to print out. In 2021, the first Spanish version of the Fishing and Boating Guide was developed, eliminating a potential barrier to participation so more people can enjoy our public waterways. Do you have a question that you just can't seem to answer using our regulations guides or our website, fw.ky.gov? Then call our Information Center at 1-800-858-1549 or email us at info.center@ky.gov. Available 5 days a week from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, our experienced and friendly staff will help you get answers to your questions. A major focus of the Information and Education Division is raising the levels of awareness of and interest in fish and wildlife conservation by all ages through education. And our education efforts take many forms. One educational feature that Kentucky Fish and Wildlife provides to the public is the Salado Wildlife Education Center, located in Frankfort. With the goal of educating the public on the mission of Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, the center is home to an interpretive facility with numerous interactive exhibits, dozens of native Kentucky wildlife species in live displays, and 4 miles of hiking trails. Deer and elk, fishes, snakes, birds of prey, and even a black bear are some of our favorite live animals to our visitors, who number more than 50,000 each year. In the center, our conservation educators host programs that educate all ages about our native wildlife, including how hunting and fishing are vital conservation tools. Our animal care staff works tirelessly year-round to ensure all of the center's animals are well cared for and their habitats are safe and functional. Ensuring the animals are clean, healthy, and comfortable is a key aspect of creating a positive visitor experience. As part of that experience, you can borrow fishing rods and reels from the center to wet a line in 2 stocked fishing lakes on site. You can even get your fishing license at Salado. The Information and Education Division is committed to continuing the hunting and fishing heritage in Kentucky. One way is by helping Kentucky citizens learn how to be safe and ethical hunters by providing hunter education courses. Every year, about 10,000 people take the course to get Hunter Ed certified. Nearly 1,000 volunteer Kentucky hunter education instructors offer about 400 separate classes and require range days each year all across the state. Another way we help sustain hunting and fishing participation is by hosting about 5,000 4th, 5th, and 6th graders at our 3 conservation camps each summer. During the school year, our conservation educators visit hundreds of schools, speaking to about 65,000 children on important conservation topics. Then, those same educators spend all summer at camp hosting classes on fishing,
Look, I caught a fish. Oh.
archery, boating, marksmanship, and other outdoor recreation subjects. But the education doesn't stop there. Recruitment, retention, and reactivation, also known as R3, is a national effort to increase participation in hunting, fishing, trapping, boating, recreational shooting, and other wildlife-related activities. How do we do this? Our educators host in-person,
You just drop it in the chamber. Now pump the gun forward.
and virtual events to provide access to anyone wanting to learn more about hunting and fishing. Programs such as Hook and Cook, Field to Fork, and Becoming an Outdoors Woman provide opportunities to experience hunting and fishing for the first time, and our educators help participants gain the skills and confidence they need to participate on their own. Kentucky is also home to the National Archery in the Schools program, or NASP. Created and launched in Kentucky in 2002, the program has expanded to 47 states and 11 countries. In Kentucky today, NASP archery classes are offered in roughly 700 schools and 45 community programs, teaching archery to nearly 150,000 students. Numerous staff from Kentucky Fish and Wildlife teams up with the NASP staff and volunteers each year to host a state tournament for up to 10,000 student archers who compete to earn college scholarships as well as tournament trophies and other prizes. Kentucky Fish and Wildlife's Information and Education Division brings together a diverse staff with a unique combination of skills, experience, and dedication to enhance public awareness and appreciation for Kentucky's fish and wildlife resources and their conservation. Passionate and mission-focused, that's who we are. Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife, that's what we do.
Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife. At the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, we take those words to heart. We are conservation officers, wildlife and fisheries biologists, conservation educators, engineering, IT, communication specialists, marketers, administrators, and customer service representatives. It's our mission to conserve, protect, and enhance Kentucky's fish and wildlife resources while providing outstanding opportunities for you to enjoy hunting, fishing, trapping, boating, shooting sports, wildlife viewing, and related activities. At Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, we protect the resource and public safety by enforcing hunting, fishing, and boating laws across Kentucky, provide public hunting and fishing access through the management of more than 1 million acres of natural areas and waterways, provide quality fishing opportunities for anglers close to home by annually stocking more than 5 million fish in public waters, build and maintain public boat ramps, shooting ranges, bank fishing access areas, and other public facilities, restore streams and wetlands on private and public lands using special grants, assist private landowners with fish and wildlife habitat improvement, inform and educate millions of youth and adults through education and outreach programs. Not only are we responsible for the conservation of the few dozen species in Kentucky that are hunted, fished, or trapped, we are responsible for all of our state's incredibly diverse animal species, nearly 1,000 of them. All of this is accomplished with funding through user fees and grants instead of state taxes. The majority of the department's revenue comes from the sale of licenses and permits, federal funds, excise taxes on outdoor-related equipment, and boat registrations. Hunting, fishing, and other wildlife-related recreation generate nearly $6 billion in total economic impact to the Commonwealth, supporting about 70,000 jobs. All of us at Kentucky Fish and Wildlife seek to be good stewards of the great outdoors, leaving it in better shape than we found it. Passionate and mission-focused, that's who we are. Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife resources. That's what we do.
Get him in there, Annie. Get in her, Sadie.
Get in there, Sadie.
Jeez.
There's turkeys all around him.
Double point, they're in there. There they go.
Can't think anything I'd rather do, so.
Do you know there's a group of people representing you, the sportsmen and sportswomen of the Commonwealth, when it comes to decision making at the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife? I'm Dr. Carl Kleinert, Chairman of the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Commission. I'm one of 9 district commissioners whose job it is to oversee the Department of Fish and Wildlife and advise the commissioner on actions to take that are beneficial to the department and in the best interest of wildlife and conservation of natural resources. Kentucky is home to me, and I grew up hunting and fishing in the Commonwealth. It's my duty, along with 8 other commission members, to be your voice in conservation when it comes to enjoying the outdoors in this state. Every decision made on your behalf is well researched, thought out, and discussed before ever coming to a vote. That's our job, and we don't take it lightly. All we ask is that you, the sportsmen and sportswomen of Kentucky, participate in the process. When a district commissioner vacancy arises, we need you to nominate someone for the position. You can come to our meetings, you can reach out to us via email or telephone.
Just go online at fw.ky.gov and search Commission to find your representative. As I see it, the job of Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Commission is to leave our natural resources in better shape than when we first got here, so that every generation after us can enjoy it the same way we have.
Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife. At the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, we take those words to heart. Our fisheries division is comprised of fisheries biologists and technicians, fish hatchery managers, fisheries researchers, and administrative specialists. We focus on aquatic species and their habitats across the Commonwealth. Large lakes, vast reservoirs, small farm ponds, open flowing rivers, secluded mountain streams. Kentucky has them all. These waterways span some 215,000 surface acres of water. Public spaces that more than 250 species of aquatic animals call home. And every year, more than 500,000 people enjoy the excellent fishing and other recreational opportunities these diverse waterways afford. Conserving and enhancing these aquatic resources and providing opportunities for their public enjoyment are the two main functions of the Fisheries Division. The primary strategies we use to manage Kentucky's fisheries include habitat improvement, fisheries research, stream restoration, fish stocking, invasive species control, and management of fish populations through regulating fish harvest. Fish habitat improvement usually involves either fostering beneficial aquatic plants or placing physical structures in waterways to provide places for fish and their prey to reproduce or take cover. Most of our public lakes are decades old, and the structure of their habitats has decomposed or has been washed away over time. Providing new fish habitat in aging reservoirs creates much better living conditions for fish and generates significantly more fishing opportunities for anglers. Fisheries research is vital to ensuring the health of all of Kentucky's aquatic species. Unless we know the actual condition of our fisheries, we can't manage them effectively. Annual fish population surveys in our many waterways provide the scientific data on species composition, abundance, and the health that our expert staff need to determine how our fisheries are doing in order to prescribe appropriate management actions. Relatively few of our aquatic species are harvested through recreational or commercial fishing, but the Fisheries Division is responsible for all of them. Researching and conserving Kentucky's lesser-known aquatic species plays a vital role in balancing Kentucky's aquatic ecosystem. Stream and wetland restoration is a key strategy that's spearheaded by the Fisheries Division's Stream Team. These restoration projects are accomplished through dedicated stream and wetland funding. Our Stream Team staff has overseen dozens of projects that have restored hundreds of miles of streams by stabilizing eroding banks and restoring original stream flows. These stream improvements not only benefit hundreds of fish and wildlife species, they also conserve soil and nutrients and improve water quality. In addition to improving the structure of waterways and monitoring the health of aquatic species, the Fisheries Division also uses fish stocking to help keep the fishing great statewide. We stock more than 5 million fish every year, from catfish to muskellunge, striped bass to trout. Fish are stocked across the state to help meet the strong recreational demand of Kentuckians and our visitors to enhance the fishing experience for everyone. Some stockings are aimed at returning native species that have been depleted, such as lake sturgeon and alligator gar. In time, these species will be added to the tremendous variety of fishing opportunities Kentucky offers. We intensively stock more than 40 urban lakes through the Fishing in Neighborhoods, or FINS program, in towns all over Kentucky. The FINS program is a partnership with local governments in which we provide the fish and our municipal partners provide access and maintenance. For many anglers, a Finn's Lake is the place they learn to cast a line or catch their first fish. Conserving the state fisheries also depends on decreasing threats to aquatic ecosystems. Controlling invasive species reduces the adverse impacts of harmful non-native species, like invasive carp, and is a must in the fight to keep Kentucky waters healthy and thriving.
We'll reconvene in regular session. We, in closed session, had 2 land acquisition projects that were discussed, so at this time I'll entertain a motion concerning land acquisition project A and or land acquisition B.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fisher.
I make a motion we move forward with land project acquisition A and B.
So I have a motion from Mr. Fisher that we move forward with land acquisition A and B to further research those purchases. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll make a second.
Mr. Lillard seconds that motion. Is there any discussion concerning land project A and project B and or project A or B? If there are no discussions, Mr. Secretary, would you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Floyd.
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher.
Aye.
Commissioner Swallows.
Aye.
Commissioner Lillard.
Aye.
Commissioner Farrell.
Aye.
By Zoom. Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
By Zoom. And I vote aye. B7, Mr. Chairman.
We have unanimous motion passage. So with that being said, our next order of business for the meeting is public comments. I'm going to ask Lisa Jackson, as we have already learned today, who's our Public Information Office Supervisor. I'm going to ask Lisa to come up and read how we handle public comments, both in present and write-in public comments. So, Ms. Jackson, if you would you inform the public of how we handle those messages?
Yes, sir. Is this the one?
You're good with that one, though.
Oh, good.
You're good with that. Just speak up a little.
This is a little bit lengthy, so please bear with me. Public comments regarding new business items or discussion items on the agenda may be submitted by email to fw.publicaffairs@ky.gov. Comments received by 5 p.m. Eastern 2 days before a meeting will be distributed to all commission members the day prior to the meeting and will be read by KDFWR staff during the commission meeting for up to 3 minutes total per commenter, time permitting and at the discretion of the commission chair. Emailed comments allow commission members adequate time for consideration and correspondence if necessary, and they allow the commission to conduct business more efficiently during meetings. Please note a commenter's contact information is not required for emailed comments, but will be necessary if information is requested, and other than name and affiliation, it will not be publicly disclosed if provided. Anonymous comments will be distributed to the commission members but may not be read during the meeting. The commission chair reserves the right to not read publicly any comments that are libelous, profane, derogatory of others, not pertaining to business items on the meeting agenda, or redundant with other comments. Questions will receive an email response. Commenters should include commission meeting in their email subject line and include their first and last names, Kentucky counties of residence or state of residence if a non-resident, and organizational affiliation and position if they are an officer or official representative for a particular organization. In-person attendees of meetings may also request to speak up to 3 minutes total per commenter on new business items or discussion items on the agenda, but will be required to sign in on the public comment request form on the table at the meeting room entrance by 9 a.m. Eastern on the day of the meeting and provide name, county, and state of residence, organization represented, and position if applicable, and applicable agenda items. Commenters who speak in person will not have their emailed comments read publicly at the meeting and are asked to avoid voicing comments that are redundant with others speaking prior to them during the allotted public comments time. We will now allow comments up to 3 minutes per person who signed up to speak on new business or discussion items by 9 a.m. this morning. And Mr. Chairman, there were two. One of the gentlemen did leave.
Okay, so we have 2 people presently signed up, and we had 3 originally, but you have 2 presently.
That's correct.
Okay, gentlemen, for those who are going to make your comments, remember, I think we have a time. Do we have a timer? We have a timer for your 3 minutes. Be sure to identify yourself and any organization for whom you represent. And I don't care who does first. You 2 guys decide who wants to speak first.
I'm not sure I've turned this on. You hear me?
And for the camera, Mr. Mullins, if you want to just stand behind the chairs, that'd be fine if you feel comfortable standing.
Yeah, great.
I think it's on.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name's Adam Mullins. I'm with the Moonlight Hunting and Fishing Club out in Northern Kentucky. The reason I'm here today is part of the land acquisition purchases that you guys make, I hope, that are used for WMAs. And I know some of the.
Can you hold that closer?
Is that better? It sounds weird.
That's for the video.
Yeah, we're
not going to be able to.
So I'm sorry. Anyways, yeah, I'll do my best.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So we hope to see some WMAs open in the Northern Kentucky district with some of these land acquisitions here in the near future. There's some that we've been actively lobbying the department for, and hope to see them open as a WMA. And that's all I really have.
Okay. So, y'all have any questions for him, or don't have any questions for him? I don't think.
Now, is it good to have one of them come and explain the process of that, so we give the public an understanding of what goes all into the acquisition? Or we just...
You mean for a WMA?
Yeah, for a philo project or some of the things.
I think are you just concerned about more WMAs being opened, right?
Yeah, but Mr. Fisher's got a good point. That's a lot of questions that I get. It's not a very clear understanding. To add to that, some of the things that I get is there's not real good transparency what these properties are being used for once purchased. You know, I think everybody understands why the department goes into executive session, but I think people also are very curious of what happens to these properties afterwards. The department seems like every meeting you have, you buy several properties anymore, a couple, whatever.
So, Brian, my suggestion would be that if we want that to happen, if this is during the public comment time, we might be best served to just put that on, put that somewhere in an agenda or some way that can be explained at another time so they can get together. We're asking them all of a sudden to get together that information. Okay. But
so we can ask
your request is noted, and we might be able to work that in somewhere to get that done, because we'd want somebody from philo to go over that, so we're not giving them much of a chance to be able to attest to that.
May I make a recommendation?
Yes, sir.
Maybe in August, that we do a brief informational update.
That's good. I think that'll satisfy his query. I think that'll satisfy his query if we do it in a place where everybody, because by this time of day, I know we've lost a lot of viewers and a lot of listeners, so it'd be best if we do that somewhere where more people can be exposed to his questions.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for yours. Okay, Mr. Thomas, I believe you next, sir.
Yes, sir.
And then how many do we have to read today, Ms. Jackson?
2.
2. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Get to be the last.
So speak up if you would, Mr. Thomas.
Yes, sir. Donald Thomas, here today representing Kentucky Elk Guides Association. And it may surprise you what I'm going to speak about today, which the commission is pretty well see. We're going to go to this, carry this on as a discussion item regarding the commercial guide license changes. That's why I'm here. The group wanted me to come up today and just put out that as far as all of the new requirements that they're proposing on the commercial guide license, that they are not in support of any of those items except the increase in the commercial guide license fee, a reasonable increase, which they have went as 100% increase for the fee, which would put it at $300 max, not the $500. That is really all I'm here today to add for you, just to pass that along for that group.
Okay. I might add, too, that I believe that all the commission members received a KEGA letter from you all concerning elk.
That was a okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'm just, for your record, letting you know that we all did receive your letter from KEGA concerning that, too.
Yes.
Okay. So you might, have you already sent that information to individual commissioners via email, the information that you all are in support of this, and this, but not this and that? Have you sent that out yet?
No, the letter that was sent the other day is the one regarding the survey on some of the elk
No, I knew that one, but I mean what you have just told us today.
No, sir, we've discussed this since March, because this, this
Right.
was like on the March agenda.
Well, since you already know then that we're going to continue this as discussion, you'll have adequate time to write down in print form if you want to send to the rest of the commissioners your all stand on the issues that they have brought forward today.
Yeah, I've got some of them here today, but that can be for June, for
Good.
discussion. We can go into
And if you can put that in print for the commissioners, that will give them another opportunity to review it prior to the actual meeting, which is priceless to us. And I think that's why we've gotten through so good today, because they are reviewing these things and we can move them a lot quicker. So if you could make that available, that might be helpful to them.
We can do that.
That's just a suggestion.
Yeah, we can do that.
Good. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
All I have for you is thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Jackson, I believe you have two to read, two public comments to read. Is
Yes,
that
sir,
right?
but I was incorrect about our number. One of our 4 commenters left, so we had 3. So
Okay.
Mr.
Oh.
Brian Mackey would still
Okay.
like to speak.
Okay. Mr. Mackey?
Brian Mackey, Hardin County, Kentucky. I was wanting to speak about the guide license requirements because I'd heard a lot of different people talk about this, and you all hit on some of the issues today. The department has talked for some time about needed revenue, additional revenue here, there, whatever. I think the increase is a good idea. Some people have said they think it's too much. Some people have said, maybe we should separate fishermen from hunters. I personally know some people that do both, the hunting and the fishing guiding. A $350 increase, even your fishing guides, they can make that up with 1 or 2 people in one trip. And not to knock the fishermen, but they've got a little bit easier life than a guy like Don back there that's humping up and down mountains, packing meat out, helping people get on the game. So I think those are good. I do think that the reporting information is a really good tool. Mr. Dreve stated that that's a good way to gather more data, whether it's with fishing or hunting. A lot of the areas in far western Kentucky, there's a big presence with whitetail operations down there. So I think the reporting information that's proposed in this would be really, really beneficial to know what's going on with those operations. How many males are they taking versus females? How many acres are they leasing up and using? One thing that I would like to see added to it, and not as much with what Mr. Thomas and his people are doing, but with the whitetail operations in western Kentucky, where it states currently that they would require updates to the acreage. They're wanting to know how many acres those people have when they file for that license. I would like to see that they have to make updates as they potentially lease more acreage after they initially file for that license. Another question I had is, do the guides license fall under federal matching money?
No, sir. They're just sporting or recreational license.
Okay. Is there any way that could be redone to where possibly could get matching money?
I don't believe, Mr. Chair, is it okay if I answer?
Go ahead.
Okay. I don't believe so because that's under federal law. So
Okay.
Federal law can be changed.
All right. Well, and like I said, I think most of this is good. I think it's probably overdue. And, I've heard some of the non-residents say they think it's really too much, but I would like to see the commission address this at the commission level and keep the legislators out of it. And, the 5-acre provision in Senate Bill 241 was supposed to help generate money. This is a way to generate money.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mackey. Okay. Ms. Jackson, proceed, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. I will now read email comments up to 3 minutes per person on new business or discussion items. We received 2 such email comments. Dear Commissioners, I am writing to advise of my opposition to the proposed increase in guide license fees that will be discussed at the next quarterly Commission meeting. As the owner of Captain Jim Fishing, Striper Fun Guide Services, Kentucky Walleye, Sauger, Bass, Muskie, and Crappie charters, my company provides fishing charter trips via 8 guides, independent contractors on the following Kentucky waterways: Lake Cumberland, below Lake Cumberland in the river, above Lake Cumberland in the Laurel Trace, Laurel Lake, Green River Lake, Cave Run Lake, Dale Hollow Lake. Briefly, I'm a Kentucky-born native and have been fishing Lake Cumberland and the other Kentucky waterways for 60 years. I am also a search and rescue coxswain with the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary Top Secret Security Clearance and serve 3 local fire departments. A few years back, I moved to Tennessee and now annually purchase a Kentucky non-resident guide license. Altogether, depending on the economy, we run about 400 charters a year in Kentucky waters. The vast majority of the clients I and my other guides take out are not from the state. They travel to the Commonwealth for the unique opportunity to fish with a guide. This creates a tremendous influx of tourism dollars to the Commonwealth. From numerous previous economic studies done over the decades, these out-of-state visitors spend a lot of money buying licenses, food, gas, and lodging, etc. On average, my clients will spend around $1,000 per trip, not counting my fee, adding to the Commonwealth's economy. They also spend time and money at local restaurants, shops, and other attractions, making an impact on the economy. Many of these same clients will return annually and some multiple times a season. Besides these visitors spending such great sums of money, as a guide, I also spend a great deal of money preparing for guide trips, buying supplies, paying thousands for boat repairs, maintenance, $5,000 annual dock fee, buying equipment, and paying for fuel, creating even more dollars to the Commonwealth. Guiding for fish is not a get-rich-quick business. With only the visitors' financial influx and not counting the cascading effect of all the great publicity for Kentucky tourism and the repeater business, the fishing charters generate this breakdown at 400 trips a year to an estimated $400,000 of tremendous influx of tourism dollars to the Commonwealth just for my company alone. Multiply this by 100 guides in Kentucky and you are looking at $40 million of tourism dollars annually for the Commonwealth. This is a simple left-hand versus right-hand equation. In the short run, yes, a few extra $100 annually could be forced out of the fishing guides, but the long-term effect of potentially losing tens of millions of dollars a year for the Commonwealth if Kentucky guides have to go elsewhere could be devastating. My company also runs even more charters in Tennessee than we do in Kentucky. If the fees for resident and non-resident guide license fees are increased 350%, as I was told was being proposed, it may not be profitable for me to continue to offer services in Kentucky. Thank you for your time. And there's a list of people that I can read or skip at this moment as to who signed it.
Thank you. That's. I want to make note that every commissioner got a copy of that too. I don't think you need to. They have a copy, so they know who this came from. So thank you for providing a copy for all of the commissioners too. Go ahead with your next one.
This one's a little bit shorter. Hello, my name is Loman Scarborough. I'm the founder president of the Hopkins County Sportsmen and Sportswomen Club, Inc. I support the recommendations of the proposed changes to the commercial guide licenses. I will also add a recommendation of resident license to be set at $1,000 and non-resident set at $5,000. Today's system is being abused across the state of Kentucky. People are leasing and subleasing properties and making a lot of money. Most of these folks are leasing a deer stand or waterfowl blind by the day or the week. These folks don't buy the appropriate guide license. To me, the folks are dodging the guide license fees. We need language within our laws to prevent this activity. These folks are offering a service the same as a hunting guide. I greatly appreciate everything you folks do for the sportsmen and sportswomen of Kentucky. Sincerely, Loman Scarborough.
Thank you. Obviously, we have a diverse group of people commenting about their stand on the license, but that's good. And we welcome, I want to reiterate that we welcome comments from the public concerning issues before the commission, and keep sending them in because they're all valuable to us.
I have a
Go ahead,
comment
Commissioner.
about Mr. Scarborough. Mr. Scarborough is a friend of mine. He meant to say $2,000, not $5,000. I think we could all agree that a $5,000 fee for an out-of-state for a non-resident guide license would be way excessive.
So that should be, as a typo, it should say 2,000 instead of 5,000 for a non-resident. Okay. Thank you. Are there any other public comments, Ms. Jackson, that you want to call the attention of the commission?
No, sir.
There are?
No, sir.
Oh, no, sir. Oh, okay, good. Well, thank you for your input today. Welcome aboard. Thank you for all that you're doing already for the department.
Thank you.
That actually concludes all the things that we had for today. I do want to make a couple of comments. I want to remind everybody that it is a very important weekend for us. As we know, we need to honor those who have served. So if you see a veteran this weekend, be sure to thank them for their service and keep in your prayers the families of those who family gave the ultimate sacrifice in defense of the liberties that we enjoy and sometimes do not appreciate. So please keep that in your prayers and your thoughts this weekend. I also want to remind you that if you have any travel plans, the National Highway Safety Board says that they project that there may be 500 deaths on U.S. highways this weekend. It's the most deadly of all weekends for travel. In 2021, we lost 15 people in the state of Kentucky. And last year, in 2022, we lost 8 in Kentucky. So if you're traveling this weekend, please be extremely careful. I want to also remind everybody that the tentative time, we have not set that in stone yet, for the next commission meeting is June the 16th at 8:30 here at Frankfort. So please put that on your tentative calendar, that's when we'll be meeting again. And at this point, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. I have a motion to adjourn. Is that seconded by Mr. Fisher? So the motion is made by Mr. Swallows, seconded by Mr. Fisher. Any discussion about that? All in favor of adjourning the meeting, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.